Chapter 186. Ling Chiyue, do you think you can enter young Master Du's eyes with your beauty? If it weren't for the fact that you look a bit like young Master Du's lover, I wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to send you to young Master Du's bed. Ling Yinzhou saw that his sister didn't know what was good for her and couldn't help showing his selfish and cold face. At this time, Ling Chiyue was already numb. It turned out that she was not only a tool for her family, but also just a substitute used to fight against his parents in Du Chen's eyes. Ridiculous. Ling Chiyue, who was completely disappointed with her family, drove out the door in a trance. As a result, she encountered a traffic accident on the way. Although she was not hurt, the doctor in the hospital told her that she was pregnant. This child was not blessed, but he was the closest person to Ling Chiyue now. She knew that she couldn't go back to the Ling family or the Du family now. Du Chen wouldn't let her give birth to this child. For the sake of the little life in her belly, Ling Chiyue did the craziest thing she had done in her life. She took out all her savings, got on a plane alone, and left the city where she grew up. Ling Chiyue left, an insignificant woman leaving, but it had no effect on Du Chen. 5 years later, Du Chen's parents died in an accident on the plane. Du Chen officially took over the Du clan and became one of the richest young tycoons in the world. Seeing the news about Du Chen in the newspapers and magazines, Su Wan's parents, Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan, had their own thoughts again. Since the Du family's master and madam were no longer around, Du Chen had the final say in the entire Du family. If their daughter went back to him at this time and reconciled with him, then wouldn't the two of them have a meteoric rise in their next life? It had to be said that the two people's little calculations were quite good, but Du Chen was not a fool. He would always find out that they took the money and left. In the end, it was Li Meiwan who thought of a way. She forced Su Wan to act according to her plan and played the trick of injuring herself in front of Du Chen. She forcibly interpreted the couple's greed for money as being forced and cornered by the Du family. Su Wan was a soft-hearted person who didn't have her own opinions. She was obedient to her parents, and she had never forgotten Du Chen all these years. She had also fantasized about continuing their relationship. Now that the opportunity was right in front of her, how could she give it up? A year later, Su Wan returned to Yinjing with her parents. At this time, the money given by the Du family had almost been squandered by the couple. The family of 3 could only rent a dilapidated room. Su Wan followed the plan designed by her mother and finally reunited with Du Chen again. Every man has a white moonlight in his heart. When Du Chen met his true love again after so many years, he still couldn't help but be moved. Although Du Chen had some doubts about Su Wan's reason for leaving back then, he didn't think too much about it. Especially when he saw with his own eyes that the Su family was living in poverty, Du Chen simply brought Su Wan's family to the Du family. At this time, Du Han had been in the laboratory and rarely came back. Du Chen was the only one in the Du family. After living in the Du house, Su Jianjun and his wife thought of ways to swindle money from Du Chen while encouraging their daughter to cook rice with Du Chen. But Du Chen was too busy and rarely went home to stay. Even if he did go home occasionally, it would be around midnight. Su Wan lived in the Du family for half a year and never had the chance to further develop with Du Chen. It was not easy to wait until Du Chen's birthday. On this day, Su Wan was ready to dedicate herself to him, but suddenly an uninvited guest broke into the Du family. This uninvited guest was a 5-year-old boy. He had the same face as Du Chen and called Du Chen father as soon as he entered the door. That's right, this was the son Ling Chiyue gave birth to for Du Chen, Ling Li, nicknamed Tana. It turned out that just 2 months ago, Ling Chiyue, who had been living abroad, also came back. She came back this time to complete the divorce procedures with Du Chen, then settle abroad and let her child go to school there. When the little boy, Tian, learned of his mother's decision, he came to the Du family first, planning to meet his legendary scumbag father. That's right, although Tian was only 5 years old, he was a genius child. He could speak 18 languages at the age of 5 and could also turn the stock market upside down. He was also good at any kind of hacking technology and could directly invade other countries' security and anti-counterfeiting systems. He was even brothers with international gang bosses. This was the genius baby that the female lead gave birth to for the male lead. No one should be envious. It's useless to be envious. Who told him to have an invincible cheat in his mother's womb? The appearance of little Tian made Du Chen pleasantly surprised and suspicious, But it also made the first crack appear between Su-won and Du-chan. Su-won couldn't accept the fact that Du-chan already had such a big son, and after Du-chan confirmed that Tian was his son, he doted on him in every possible way, which made Su-won even more jealous. Of course, Su-won was not blinded by jealousy at this time. She also tried to communicate with Tian and tried to find out his mother's identity. How could the genius baby of our female lead's family be compared to a brat from an ordinary family? Little Tian acted cute and pitiful in front of Du-chan, but in front of Su-won, he kept mocking and deliberately provoking her. Every time, Du-chan happened to see it, making Su-won speechless. In this way, under the disruption of little Tian, Su-won, the bad woman whom he regarded as a true love mistress, finally lost Du-chan's heart step by step. Under little Tian's scheme, Su Jianjun and his wife lost a lot of money in gambling. They actually planned to steal the Du family's valuable calligraphy and paintings to sell. In the end, they were naturally caught red-handed, and the two people's past and those things from that year were all dug out. After that, things happened naturally. Du-chan and Su-won broke up, the Su family of 3 were kicked out of the Du family, and then Su-won became seriously ill. When she recovered from her illness, she anxiously went to the Du clan to find Du-chan with a haggard face and little Tian's family of 3. She saw the harmonious picture of Du-chan, Ling Chiyue, and little Tian's family of 3 together. Su-won, who couldn't stand this stimulation, couldn't help but rush up and question Ling Chiyue, the mistress. At this time, Ling Chiyue was no longer the simple Miss Ling of the Ling family. Faced with the unreasonable provocation of her rival in love, she just indifferently took out her wedding ring. Du-chan and I are legal husband and wife. Miss Su, do you need me to say who is the mistress? At that time, Su-won was completely dumbfounded. During the days when she and Du-chan were separated, Su Jianjun and his wife were afraid of provoking her, so they concealed the fact that Du-chan was married from her. So Su-won didn't know until this moment that Du-chan had been married for a long time during the years they were separated, and the child in front of her was Du-chan's legitimate son. He was definitely not an illegitimate child with a mistress as she had imagined. Calculating the child's age, this child was born when she left Yanjing. What does this mean? Su-won, who felt that she had been deceived by everyone, finally walked on the road of despair because of her psychological breakdown. Su-won's death did not make Du-chan sad for long. With a smart and lovely son like little Tian, Du-chan gradually realized how good Ling Chiyue was. So when Ling Chiyue was about to sign the divorce papers, the father and son naturally tried to stop her. Later, with his son's divine assistance, Du-chan finally used his hundreds of millions of net worth as a betrothal gift to recapture his lovely wife, and the family of 3 had a happy ending. This is such a touching and joyous story, if Su-won wasn't the former cannon fodder at this time. The quarrel between Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan in the room had escalated, and the two people even began to fight. Both of you, stop. Su-won suddenly sat up from the bed and looked sharply at the other 2 people in the room. Now you have the ability? Why didn't you 2 look so spirited when you were kicked out of the Du family? Xiaowon, Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan stopped their movements at the same time. Both husband and wife looked at their daughter, who suddenly had an imposing aura with a shocked expression. What was going on? Why does Xiaowon seem to have become a completely different person? Seeing that both of them were looking at her, Su-won raised her eyebrows slightly. Do you still want to go back to the Du family? Xiaowon, do you have a way? Hearing Su-won's words, Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan immediately became excited. At this time, they didn't have time to ask about their daughter's changes. As long as they could live a life of glory and wealth again, they didn't care so much. I naturally have a way, but don't give me any more trouble. I have to wait for an opportunity. Su-won answered very calmly under the 2 people's fervent gazes. She was waiting for a person, and that person was naturally Du-han. Chapter 187. Because Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan were cheated of a large sum of money by little Tian's gambling house, the couple still owed a lot of gambling debts. So now the family of 3 didn't even dare to return to the small house they rented and could only hide in a dirty and messy inn. Nowadays, technology was so advanced that as long as you carried electronic devices on you, it was easy to be found by enemies or debt collectors. In order to avoid such things, The Su family of 3 didn't even bring a mobile phone card with an electronic chip on them. In the windowless room, the air was filled with an unpleasant smell. Su-won had traveled to so many worlds, but this was the first time she had met such greedy parents. Hearing that Su-won had a way to return to the Du family, the 2 people who had just fought fiercely with flushed faces were now squatting in the corner and starting to design their rich and noble life in the future. For parents to act like this, it was simply a classic example of negative teaching materials. While the 2 were immersed in the imagination of a beautiful future life, Su-won quietly left the room. After leaving the inn and walking on the wide street, Su-won took a deep breath. Fortunately, the air outside was fresh enough. On the unfamiliar streets, there were high-tech electronic cars everywhere. This era was very environmentally friendly, and all energy could be recycled. Su-won wandered around the street alone and bought 3 simple and cheap dinner takeaways. But when she returned to the hotel, Su Jianjun and Lee Mei-won had long disappeared. The narrow room was very messy, and on the fallen chair, there was a scribbled note. Su-won picked up the note and looked at it. It was left by the debt collectors before they left. The general meaning was that they took Su Jianjun and Lee Mei-won away. If their relatives wanted to redeem them, they had to pay at least 100,000 yuan in arrears of interest for this month. Well, is money really not considered money these days? 1 month's interest is 100,000 yuan? Su-won threw the note aside and looked at the 3 dinners she bought with a melancholy face. What a waste! She bought 2 more. 2 whole dinners. As for the safety of Su Jianjun and Lee Mei-won, Su-won wasn't worried. Those debt collectors wanted money more than their lives. If the couple was caught, they would suffer a little. It would be good for them to remember. She simply cleaned the room. Thinking that she had already paid a month's rent, Su-won also gave up on the idea of changing a place to live. She opened the door to let the smell in the room out and then ate her dinner. As for the 2 extra portions, Su-won finally took them out and gave them to the inn's lady boss and the receptionist at the front desk. The lady boss, who had always been stingy, was originally angry because of that group of people making a racket in the evening. After taking Su-won's dinner, her cold face gradually turned into a smile. Just like this, Su-won stayed in this small inn. The lady boss of the inn was also a stock investor. Su-won had nothing to do and helped her look at stocks. Seeing that Su-won really had some ability to help her make money, the lady boss's attitude towards her became better and better. In the end, she even took the initiative to help Su-won change to a more spacious room with windows. At this time, Su-won didn't have any spare money in her wallet. It wasn't that she didn't think of entering the market herself, but with her current funds, it was too little to start a business. It was true that a penny stumped a hero. Su-won had no choice but to continue to make her presence felt at the lady boss's side. The favorability was raised. The lady boss not only gave her a good room to live in, but she would also eat with Su-won with great enthusiasm every day. After more than half a month, Su Jianjun and Lee Mei-won finally came back. The 2 of them looked extremely miserable at this time. It seemed that they had been abused by those debt collectors. Xiao-won, why don't you go save your mother? As soon as she entered the room, Lee Mei-won, who was disheveled and dirty, began to cry herself hoarse. Su-won frowned at the hoarse crying. What can I do to save you? Su-won dug into her pocket and only took out a few hundred yuan in change. This is all my assets. Don't you know what our family's situation is like? You don't have money, but doesn't young Master Do have it? You go cry, beg, and make a scene. On the side, Su Jianjun sat on the bed with a look of resentment on his face. I've been driven out by Du Chan. He's holding his wife and child right now, having fun. Living. Will he care about my life and death? Can you guys grow some brains? Su-won's face also sank at this time. Besides, aren't you guys fine now without missing an arm or a leg? What were you thinking when you borrowed this large sum of money? Have you thought about the consequences of not paying it back? At that time, Lee Mei-won stopped crying and looked at Su-won with a complicated expression. At that time, didn't we have the Du family to support us? Who knew that young Master Du would turn hostile just like that? He's not a man at all. As she spoke, Lee Mei-won began to curse Du Chin endlessly until her throat was hoarse and she was tired of cursing, so she stopped. As for Su Jianjun, He took out a pack of cigarettes from who knows where and began to sit at the head of the bed to smoke. The unpleasant smell of smoke made Soo-won wrinkle her nose. She stepped forward and grabbed General Soo's cigarette, pinched it out, and threw it into the trash can. "What are you doing?" Soo Jianjun saw that his cigarette was taken away and immediately glared at Soo-won. "What do you think I'm doing? If you two don't listen to me, I can give you glory, splendor, and wealth. Otherwise, you two can get lost." In the original plot, after Soo-won committed suicide, her greedy parents only knew how to make an issue out of this matter. They took the opportunity to take a large sum of money from Do-chun and then flew away. In their hearts, there might not be any so-called family affection at all. Soo-won naturally wouldn't be polite to such parents. "You damn girl, you're rebelling against the heavens." Soo Jianjun immediately stood up angrily when he heard Soo-won's words, but as soon as his eyes came into contact with Soo-won's cold, sharp, and emotionless eyes, the anger in Soo Jianjun's heart was immediately scared away. Greedy people are mostly timid, and Soo Jianjun is actually as timid as a mouse. You can see that he usually yells happily, but he's actually very timid. Okay. At this time, Lee Mei-wan also came forward to smooth things over. "Xiao-wan, my good daughter, we'll listen to you. We'll all listen to you, okay? Tell us, what do you want us to do?" "What you have to do is very simple. During this period, you just need to guard outside the Du family's courtyard. When you see eldest young Master Du coming back, you rush up to recognize him." "Recognize him?" Soo Jianjun and Lee Mei-wan both looked puzzled when they heard Soo-won's words. But Soo-won just smiled with a face full of confidence. Everyone in Yinjing's upper class knew that eldest young Master Du was a strict and slow man with high IQ and low EQ. When he gave up business to do research, Master Du and Madame Du only made one request. That was to let him get married immediately and then give them a grandson or granddaughter, so that the two people would no longer interfere with his life. Soon after, Du-han brought a little girl to the two people, along with a paternity test report, proving that the baby girl was his biological daughter. The little girl was naturally Du-han's daughter, Du-yu. No one knew who her mother was. Many people speculated that the girl was Du-han's surrogate mother, but in fact, the child was indeed a test tube baby. Her biological father was indeed Du-han, but the biological mother was unknown. In fact, only Du-han knew about this matter. When he decided to do test tube baby, he specially chose the frozen eggs of a young woman who died because of an accident, so as to avoid any awkward and complicated situation because of meeting the child's mother one day. At that time, Du-han did not think that Du would leave him one day. Du-han was a very strict and introverted person. He poured endless love into his only daughter, but Du died because of an accident when she was 4 years old. Since then, Du-han has become more closed off. He tried his best to resurrect Du and even created a high-tech robot with super artificial intelligence. Du? This robot's face is very similar to Du-han, and even its age is calculated according to Du-yu's age. For such a crazy brother, Du-chun can only sigh at the impermanence of the world. As for the robot Du, Du-chun did not accept it. There were many intelligent robots working as servants in the Du family. In Du-chin's view, a machine would always be a machine. No matter how intelligent she would never become a real human being. When everyone rejected Du, Ling Qiue liked her very much. Perhaps because she was a single mother, Ling Qiue could understand Du-han's feelings very well. The two people slowly became good friends in contact. Du-han, who was in his early 30s and had never been in love, also quietly fell in love with Ling Qiue at this time. Chapter 188. For the sake of future glory and wealth, Soo Jianjun and Lee Mei-wan followed Soo-won's instructions and went out early and returned late every day to squat outside the Du family's house. These two sneaky figures had long attracted little Ling Li's attention. Since successfully driving away the little mistress family, Ling Li also spent a lot of effort to persuade his mother, Ling Qiue, to move back to the Du family. Of course, the current Ling Qiue still can't forgive Du-chan. She still wholeheartedly wanted to divorce Du-chan, and little Tian, who realized that his father was not so scum, was now trying to get his mother and father back together. As the saying goes, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. He didn't believe that the two people living together all day long couldn't spark some sparks of love. Of course, the premise is that there are no blind people who come to make trouble. This little Shota is very cruel and merciless, Dad. On this day, little Tian Tian came back from kindergarten in Du Chen's car. Seeing the two familiar figures not far away, little Tian Tian's eyes flashed. Dad, those two people are sneaking around outside our house all day long. Are they trying to kidnap me? I'm so scared. The kindergarten teacher said that there are a lot of bad people outside now. Bad people? Du Chun followed little Tian Tian's gaze and saw two sneaky and familiar figures. Isn't that Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan? Kidnap? Du Chen's heart trembled. He remembered that the couple seemed to owe a lot of money outside. They wandered around the Du family's house all day and didn't cry and beg him to lend them money like before. Could it be that they really had evil intentions and wanted to kidnap his son? At the thought of this, Du Chen's eyes immediately turned cold and gloomy. After the car drove into the Du family's villa, the doors slowly closed. Su Jianjun and his wife, who had waited for another day in vain, were about to leave. Who knew that at this time, a few tall and powerful bodyguards suddenly rushed out from the side door of the Du family's villa. They knocked the couple to the ground and dragged them directly into the Du family's back garden. At this time, Du Qian had changed into a set of home clothes and was sitting elegantly at the wooden table in the garden, tasting red wine. Second young master, they are here. Several bodyguards in black threw Su Jianjun and his wife in front of Du Qian. Both of them were stunned when they saw the second young master of the Du family. They were instinctively a little afraid, but when they remembered what Su Wan had told them, Li Meijuan's heart calmed down a lot. Afraid? Afraid of what? His daughter had said that she had young master backing her up. But the problem was, where was eldest young master Du? Looking at the two people in front of him meaningfully, Du Chen raised his hand and the housework robot on the side quickly helped him remove the wine glasses and bottles. Tell me, why have you been wandering around my house? What do you want? Don't tell me. You still want to steal from my Du family? No, no, no. Hearing Du Chen's words, Su Jianjun immediately trembled and hurriedly denied it. This good for nothing. Li Meiwan glared at him and then straightened her back slightly. We are just strolling around here. Does this whole street belong to your family? Oh. Du Chan smiled evilly. That's right. This entire street is the property of my Du family. Li Meiwan was speechless. How could she forget about the Du family's financial resources? She made a sad face. Even if the whole street belongs to your family, you still have to let others go, right? Li Meiwan had made up her mind to quibble. She would never reveal her true purpose. Seeing Li Meiwan being so stubborn, Du Chen looked at Su Jianjun, who was trembling with fear. Just these two people want to kidnap me? Are you fucking kidding me? Having preliminarily determined that the risk of these two people was very small, Du Chan was also relieved, but for the sake of caution, he decided to let these two people disappear from now on. How much gambling debt do you owe? I'll help you pay it back. As a condition of exchange, Du Chen leaned down and looked at the two people coldly. Don't ever appear in front of me again, let alone near my house. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite to you. Su Jianjun was a little moved and turned to look at his wife inquiringly. You didn't pay attention. At this moment, Li Meiwan felt that her life was a failure. How much water did she have in her head to marry such a wicked thing? Young Master Du, we don't need you to help us pay back the money. Our family Xiaowan said that her husband will help us pay back the money and will also support us in our retirement, so we can't accept your kindness. Speaking of this, Li Meiwan felt that she was a lot more confident. That's right. It's this feeling. This old lady is destined to become young Master Du's mother-in-law and doesn't care about that little bit of profit. What do you mean don't appear here in the future? Humph. When my daughter marries into the Du family, I will be half the owner of this place. This garden, this villa, this swimming pool, everything here will not belong to you, Du Chen. It will all be ours in the future. It will all be ours. The greed in Li Meijuan's eyes flashed and Du Chen just raised the corner of his lips and smiled coldly when he caught a glimpse of her expression. Could it be that she still dreams of marrying her daughter into a rich and powerful family? Du Chen did not deny that he liked and loved Suwon deeply. Even before Tian appeared, he thought of giving her a status and living with her for the rest of his life. But the appearance of little Tian changed everything. A woman who lies in front of him and bullies his son when he is not at home. Is she really worthy of his love and affection? Back then, he must have been blind to think that she was a good girl. Du-chun believed that everything he saw and found out was the truth. He had already given up on Suwon. Similarly, he only felt deep disgust towards Suwon's parents. Since you don't need my help, that's even better, but I hope you remember what I said. Don't appear in this vicinity again, otherwise I'll make you look good. Du-chun coldly waved his hand and several bodyguards immediately rushed over to drag Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan outside. At this time, a black extended car suddenly drove in slowly from outside the gate. The streamlined limited edition extended car stopped directly outside the garden. The black door slowly opened, and the first thing that caught everyone's eyes was a pair of spotless leather shoes, followed by well-ironed trousers and slender and straight legs. A man in a black suit slowly got out of the car. His suit was neatly dressed, just like him. At first glance, he gave people a very rigorous and elegant feeling. Eldest young master. The bodyguards in the garden all bowed their heads respectfully when they saw the man's figure. This is Du family's eldest young master, Du Han? Li Meijuan's eyes lit up when she heard this. She suddenly broke free from the bodyguard beside her and rushed to Du Han in a few steps. Son-in-law, we've finally waited for you. Son-in-law? Su Rue had just gotten out of the car when he saw a woman with disheveled hair running straight towards him. He was about to slap her away when he heard the woman call him son-in-law. Aunt, where did you come from? Su Rue's face was cold and he frowned slightly. At this time, Du-chun on the side was also anxious. He knew his elder brother's rigorous temperament and naturally couldn't watch Li Meiwan, this shrew, mess around here. Come, drag this crazy woman out for me. Du-chun growled coldly, and the bodyguards, who felt derelict in their duties, immediately rushed forward to grab Li Meijuan's arm. At this time, Li Meiwan couldn't care so much and quickly shouted at Su Rue, Son-in-law, say something. It was our family's Xiao Wan who asked me to look for you. How did you? Wait. Su Rue suddenly said coldly and walked elegantly to Li Meiwan step by step. You said that Xiao Wan asked you to look for me? You are Su Wan's mother. Li Meiwan? Yes. Son-in-law, you know me? Seeing Su Rue call out her name at once, Li Meijuan's panic-stricken little heart instantly returned to normal. The more she called him son-in-law, the smoother it was. Su Rue waved his hand and motioned for the bodyguards to retreat. Where is Xiao Wan? Take me to see her. Big brother? At this time, Du-chun had already stood up and came to the side of several people. The strange thing in front of him made Du-chun somewhat inexplicable, and at this time, something that surprised him even more happened. The other door of the extended car behind Su Rue was slowly pushed open, and a little girl who looked 70 to 80% similar to him jumped out of the car with a happy face. Dad, are we going to find Mom? Hurry up and go. Susu misses Mom so much. This is Du-chun at least knew what his elder brother was doing crazily, but Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan didn't know. At this time, seeing Su Xiaosu pulling the corner of Su Rue's clothes and shouting to go find Su Wan, the husband and wife were instantly petrified. Chapter 189. The small hotel where Su Wan's family lived was in the old suburbs of Yanjing. Although the traffic here was also very developed, in this era of super-information, such old apartment-style hotels had long been eliminated, and the people who came and went here were naturally people who did not live a very wealthy life. Because of this, when the black limited edition Silver Wing night limousine drove over, the entire street was in an uproar. Have you heard of Silver Wing Night? Have you seen the real Silver Wing Night? It is said that there is only one in the entire country. Truly unique, truly unparalleled in the world. Most people had only seen this car on a 3D projection screen, but the shock they felt at this time was far beyond what they felt at that time. This was a real top car. A group of onlookers who loved cars as much as their lives could not help but chase after this black melody all the way. Then they watched the Silver Wing Night, which represented status and wealth, slowly stop at the door of an inconspicuous hotel. The car door slowly opened, and the surrounding onlookers couldn't help holding their breath. Everyone knew that this car belonged to the Du family, and the owner of this car was the extremely mysterious Du family's eldest son, Du Han, who rarely appeared in public. Amidst the exclamations, the first to get off the car was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was wearing extremely ordinary casual clothes, but his expression was very arrogant at the moment. Following him was another middle-aged woman who looked younger than him. These two people. Some people had already recognized that the people who had just gotten off the car were the tenants of this hotel. Are they relatives of the Du family? At this time, the lady boss, who had heard the noise outside from the front desk, also ran to the door. She looked at the cool limited edition luxury car in front of her, and then looked at Su Jianjun, who was standing in front of the car with an arrogant look on his face. Her beautiful eyes turned, and she immediately turned to the lobby and shouted softly, "Little sister Xiaowan, little sister Xiaowan, your parents seem to have brought guests." Although Su Jianjun was timid, his tone was very big. When he had nothing to do in the hotel, he liked to brag to the surrounding residents that his son-in-law was young Master Du. He also always said how luxurious the Du family's villa was, how big the swimming pool was, and how big the servants at home were all intelligent robots. Of course, the people living in this small apartment hotel were all poor or people who had suffered major setbacks in their lives. Everyone gathered together and chatted casually. No one took Su Jianjun's words seriously at all. But now, the lady boss's mind began to move. Could it be that Su Jianjun wasn't bragging? Su Wan's husband was really young Master Du? At this time, Su Wan also slowly walked to the door. Seeing the flashy luxury car in the original plot, Su Wan just squinted her eyes and smiled. In the next moment, Su Wan's smile stiffened. Su Xiaosu happily got out of the car and leaned into Su Wan's embrace. Mom, I miss you so much." This is Su Wan frozen place. She had always regarded Su Xiaosu as a pet in Lingshan and never really regarded her as her own relative. In this world, there were too few people who could make Su Wan acknowledge them and make her willing to open her heart to them without reservation. "You are Su?" It took a long time for Su Wan to find her voice. She lowered her eyes and looked at Su Xiaosu, who was making a fuss in her arms, in surprise. It was this action, it was this fuss. It was exactly the same as Su Xiaosu in Lingshan. It's me, I'm back." When Su Xiaosu heard Su Wan's words, she immediately raised her little face and blinked those eyes that were very similar to Su Rui's. She looked at Su Wan pitifully. "Mom, did you miss me?" As an advanced artificial intelligence that was input into the human emotional system, Su Xiaosu's program only had Su Wan and Su Rui, her two relatives. When she was floating in the boundless world of Lingshan, she missed them all the time. At that time, Su Xiaosu clearly knew that she was just a copied data stream. She was afraid that she would never see them again in this life. But not long ago, Lingshan's data world was suddenly connected again. Su Xiaosu's data stream returned to her original world according to the familiar track. Of course, this was all thanks to this world's advanced technology setting, which made it so easy for Su Rui to break the spatial data barrier and let the two data streams connect wirelessly. This kind of attempt was only effective for Lingshan's full data world. In short, although Su Rui took some more time, he still successfully picked up Su Xiaosu and let her data stream fit perfectly with the current robot's body. Missing was a kind of pain. At this moment, Su Wan seemed to be able to clearly feel Su Xiaosu's pain and expectation from her eyes. "Mom, did you miss me?" The childish inquiry was still echoing in her ears. Su Wan took a deep breath and smiled as she held Su Xiaosu in her arms. "I missed you too," she lied, but she will try to treat Su Xiaosu better in the future. Wife. Su Rui was the last to get out of the car. In fact, he missed Su Wan more urgently than anyone else. After all, it has been almost a month since he came to this world. He has been busy nonstop and was finally liberated from the laboratory today. "I'm here to pick you up and take you home." Without any extra words, Su Rui stretched out his hand to Su Wan. His big hand was always so warm and reassuring. It wasn't until the silver-winged knight slowly disappeared from the street that the people on the street and in the hotel woke up from their dream. Many people who had chatted with Su Jianjun beat their chests and stamped their feet in regret. If they had believed Su Jianjun's words and befriended him, would they have been able to make a comeback with the help of the Du family? It has to be said that there are a lot of people in this world who like to daydream. Of course, it wasn't just the people in the hotel. Even Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan were still in a dream when they re-entered the Du family's luxurious villa hall. They really came back? Big brother, you are? At this time, Du Chen's family of 3 had just finished dinner. When Du Chen saw that Su Rui had brought Su Wan's family in, his whole face changed. Little Tian Tian, who had been nestled in his mother's arms and acting cute, also looked at Su Wan with hostility. Ling Qiuyue, on the other hand, seemed very calm. Of course, she was also very curious about Su Wan, so her eyes stayed on Su Wan for several seconds. Ling Qiuyue remembered that Ling Yinzhou once said that she looked like Du Chen's lover back then, but time changes people. Now the two standing together couldn't see any similarities at all. In the past 6 years, Ling Qiuyue has been constantly changing and moving forward. And the original Su Wan was actually still immersed in the memory of the past, making no progress. Seeing Du Chen and his son's undisguised hostility towards Su Wan, Su Rui's eyes also turned cold. He raised his hand and put it around Su Wan's shoulder. I'm bringing my wife home. Do you have any objections? Wife. As soon as this remark came out, even Ling Qiuyue, who had been very calm, was dumbfounded. Du Han has a wife? Didn't he never get married or had a girlfriend? No, that's not right. He once had a daughter. That girl later. Thinking of this, Ling Qiuyue looked suspiciously at Su Xiaosu, who was following Su Wan closely and looked almost identical to Su Rui. The amount of information is a bit too much. The female lead is also incompetent. Big brother, what are you talking about? At this moment, Du Chen's face had become very ugly. Although he quickly thought of a possibility, he quickly denied that absurd and boring idea. You don't understand Chinese? Hearing Du Chen's question, Su Rui raised his eyebrows again and said calmly and indifferently, Su Wan is my daughter's biological mother, and from this moment on, she is my wife, the eldest young mistress of the Du family. Su Wan is Du Yu's mother? Isn't that the mysterious woman from 8 years ago? Du Chen looked at Su Wan with an embarrassed expression. Su Wan, tell me, is what my brother said true? 8 years ago, Du Chen didn't know Su Wan at all. If she was already with his elder brother at that time, then why did she fall in love with him later? For a moment, all kinds of conspiracy theories flashed through Du Chen's mind. Hearing his question, Su Wan just smiled slightly and said unhurriedly, First, please call me sister-in-law in the future. Don't call me directly by my name. Thank you for your cooperation. Second, what my husband said is naturally true. Why would he lie to you? That's right. Mom and Dad won't lie. Su Xiaosu, who was on the side, hurriedly took this opportunity to make her presence known in front of the male lead. At this time, the little genius Ling Li, who had been quietly paying attention to the development of the situation, also set his eyes on Su Xiaosu for the first time. This was the first encounter between the little boy and the little lowly. There was no predestined tit-for-tat, Mars colliding with Earth, and there would not be the legendary love at first sight between two innocent young people. Ling Li, humph, don't look at how she's 2 years older than me. Listening to the tone of her voice, this genius knows that her IQ isn't high and it's not a problem at all. Su Xiaosu, little friend over there, what are you looking at? If you look at me again, I won't give you candy to eat. I only have 1 piece of candy. Woo-woo, so pitiful. Although a robot can't taste sweet when eating candy, I just like it. Chapter 190. Although Du Chen and his son were very dissatisfied with Su Wan's family moving in, this was Du Han's decision and Du Chen couldn't refute it. What's more, Du Chen felt that the amount of information he received was a bit too much today. He needed to sort out the messy thoughts in his mind before making a decision. The servants in the Du family's villa were all intelligent robots. Although they didn't have human feelings like Su Xiaosu, they could meticulously carry out any task in their program. As soon as Su Rui went upstairs, he entered the password to the servant robot and asked them to arrange Su Jianjun, his wife, and Su Xiaosu in the guest rooms upstairs. As for Su Wan, she naturally had to live with Su Rui. As an existence with high IQ and low EQ, Du Han's room was decorated very strangely. When she entered the door, Su Wan only saw 4 snow-white walls and the entire bedroom was empty. What kind of situation is this? Su Rue was very satisfied with Su Wan's surprised look at this time. He raised his hand and entered his fingerprint on the electronic instrument next to the door. The 4 walls in the room immediately separated automatically, and then a black wardrobe, a black bed, and a black bookshelf appeared. Well, black and white. This simple color is really the favorite of a top student. Su Wan was about to tease a few words, but Su Rue next to her had already blocked Su Wan's mouth with his own lips. The hot and intense kiss with Su Rue's exclusive breath surrounded Su Wan's whole body in an instant. A night of high-intensity exercise made the two lazy in bed the next day and unwilling to move. Breakfast was naturally served by the servant robot. Su Wan really had no appetite, but under General Su's gentle and affectionate gaze, she still drank a small half-bowl of hot porridge. Wife, if we stay in this world for a lifetime, do you think we will have our own children? Su Rue, who was still wearing a black bathrobe, hugged Su Wan from behind and whispered softly in her ear. Children. Naturally, there won't be. Mission enforcers are existences detached from each plane. In order not to affect the development of each world, and to let the mission enforcers have no worries, they are a group of people cursed by the laws of the world. They will not have their own descendants. Unless he had enough points to cancel the plane contract he had signed when he became a mission enforcer. Su Rue curled his lips. Then we'll have to wait a bit longer. Wife, after so many years and with so many mission enforcers, are there no exceptions? No? Su Wan's gaze became absent-minded. Yes, there was such a mission enforcer in the lost space-time. She fell in love with a powerful man in a certain space-time. In order to give birth to a child for her lover, she did not hesitate to go against the laws of the entire world. This is something that happened in a certain ancient cultivation world. Speaking of this, Su Wan's expression was a bit regretful. I unintentionally read a few words in our department's archive. It said that the female mission enforcer died, but she successfully gave birth to a son for her lover. Unfortunately, the child was rejected by the laws of the world when he was born. Before he could take a look at the world, he was annihilated by the laws of the world. And the man who lost his wife and son self-destructed in despair, destroying more than half of the resources in that world. From then on, that cultivation world declined from a lofty, high-class cultivation world to a low-class cultivation world lacking in resources. This was a legend belonging to mission enforcers. Su Wan did not think that one day, she and Su Rue would really come to that legendary cultivation world and even see the protagonist of this story with their own eyes. Hearing the legend that Su Wan spoke of, Su Rue also sighed lightly. Fortunately, he chose to become a mission enforcer. Then he and Su Wan would not encounter such a tragic thing. It doesn't matter if we don't have children in the mission world. Don't we still have little Susu here? Hearing Su Rue take the initiative to talk about Su Xiaosu, Su Wan couldn't help but ask, "What's going on with Su Xiaosu? You still won't confess?" Seeing that his wife was also very concerned about Su Xiaosu's matters, Su Rue happily told Su Wan everything. And when Su Wan heard all this, she froze for a good while. When she and Su Rue were in the world of Lingshan, the Su Rue in this world spread Su Xiaosu's data to the world of Lingshan. Even if the time and space of each plane were not equal, this kind of thing was still very unimaginable, right? Unless that Su Rue was not this Su Rue. It was a parallel universe. The other Su Rue in the parallel universe transmitted the Su Xiaosu that he created to Su Wan and Su Rue's world through cross-space data technology. And the purpose of doing this was to give a gift to her in another time and space? Su Rue, do you think it's a parallel universe? Su Wan couldn't help but ask her doubts. Hearing her question, Su Rue couldn't help but tighten his hold on Su Wan's hand. If it's me in another world, then it's even more worth being happy about, because in another time and space, I still love you, and you also love me. Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wan also smiled knowingly. If a parallel universe really exists, at this moment, what is the other you doing? Who would be by her side? By the time Su Rue and Su Wan tidied up in the bedroom and went downstairs, Du Chun had already gone to the company to work, and Ling Qiwei had also taken little Tian to kindergarten. Downstairs, only Su Jianjun, Li Meiwan, and Su Xiaosu were left. At this moment, the two were sitting on Su Xiaosu's left and right, listening to Su Xiaosu's story about how Han, this idiot, secretly fell in love, stalked, and did everything possible to pursue Su Wan. Morning. Su Rue came down the stairs, wearing an elegant black silk tang suit, coupled with a slightly serious and handsome face. He looked very abstinent. Li Meiwan. TSK TSK TSK. You really can't judge a book by its cover. This eldest young master looks like a gentleman. I didn't expect him to be an idiot. Fortunately, he is rich and good-looking. My daughter didn't lose out at all, Su Jianjun. It's human nature for a man to be lustful. Unconsciously, Su Jianjun thought of the hotel owner's charming little figure again. Oh, what a pity, facing the strange gazes of the two elders downstairs. Su Rue still had a stern and handsome face, and his eyes fell on Su Xiaosu. Su, come here. Su Xiaosu. Did he find out that I was making things up behind his back? Don't be so serious, you're scaring the child. Su Wan whispered on the side, then turned her head and waved at Su Xiaosu with a smile. Su, come here. Su Xiaosu. Sob, only a mother is good in this world. A child with a mother is a treasure. Mom. Su Xiaosu threw herself into Su Wan's arms without hesitation and rubbed herself in her arms very skillfully. This was a habit developed in Lingshan. Good girl. Su Wan gently stroked Su Xiaosu's hair, bent down and whispered to her face. What were you talking to them just now? Tell me quickly. Oh. Su Xiaosu nodded and told Su Wan the heart-stirring melodramatic love story she had fabricated. Seeing the mother and daughter beaming with joy, the corner of Su Rue's mouth twitched. Do you think this general can't hear you if you speak very softly? Chapter 191. As the richest family in China, any news about the Du family, even if the Du family's pet dog ate an extra meal a day, would become big news reported by many periodicals and magazines. And just yesterday, countless citizens witnessed the appearance of eldest young Master Du's silver-winged knight. Moreover, the suspected mysterious lover of eldest young Master Du from 8 years ago finally surfaced. On this day, the entire media in Yinjing was boiling. The small media without resources and background began to walk the streets and alleys to interview the onlookers that day. In the end, a lot of media surrounded the small inn that Su Wan's family lived in. The lady boss and her small inn really became popular. At the same time, countless big media surrounded the Du family's villa and the Du family's company, waiting to interview the main character. For these boring interviews, Du Qian, who came to the company in the morning, immediately sent his assistant to send away all the media. After doing this, Du Qian dialed the phone number of a private detective he was familiar with. Young Master Du? The voice of the person on the other end of the phone was very surprised. Young Master Du, is there anything else you need my help with? Who wouldn't like a nouveau riche client like Du Qian? In order to maintain such a client, anyone has to treat him carefully. You gave me all the information about Su Wan's investigation? Du Qian's tone was a little low. Because of Tiantian's hint, Du Qian found someone to investigate Su Wan's family after discovering their suspicious points. At that time, he found this detective, who was already the best private detective in Yinjing. I handed over everything I could find at that time to you. Young Master Du, what's wrong? Did something go wrong? The person on the other end of the phone also stopped laughing and his tone became very serious. Young Master Du, we are very professional and will not casually use false information to deceive customers. I know. Du Qian's fingers tapped on the desk, feeling a burst of irritation in his heart. Help me investigate again. The fee is the same. No. The fee is doubled. Help me check the relationship between Su Wan and my eldest brother. Eldest young Master Du? The detective on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment. Oh my. This little one wouldn't inadvertently get involved in the internal struggle of a nouveau riche family, right? Money or life, this is really a question. Hearing the sound of the electric arc sucking in a cold breath, Du Qian couldn't help but raise his voice. 3 times, if you don't take it, I'll find someone else. I'll take it. I'll take it. Damn it, he could retire immediately after finishing this job. Only an idiot wouldn't accept it. After hanging up the phone, Du Chun leaned back in his boss's chair with a complicated look in his eyes. Booze. At this time, his assistant, Yu Feng, quickly walked in with a hesitant expression. What's wrong? Those reporters aren't leaving? Du Chun raised his eyes and glanced coldly at Yu Feng. Yu Feng had been by his side for 3 to 4 years. Could it be that he couldn't even handle such a small matter? No. Hearing Du Chun's words, Yu Feng shook his head nervously. Boss, the reporters downstairs, they all ran away. Yes, before Yu Feng and the company's public relations team could deal with them, the reporters all left like crazy. There was only one possibility for such a situation to occur. They had to hurry to another scene that was even more exciting and selling. Hearing Yu Feng's words, Du Chun was also surprised. Is there anything else in Yinjing that is more selling than our Du family? Yes, there was no family more eye-catching than the Du family. Therefore, bang. At this time, the door of Du Chun's office was suddenly pushed open and a group of shareholders rushed in anxiously. Second young master. What the hell does eldest young master want to do? Big brother? Du Chun looked at the person who suddenly came in blankly. What happened to my big brother? Yu Feng, what the hell happened? Boss, you'd better see for yourself. As Yu Feng spoke, he pressed the button on the 3D projection screen at the corner of Du Chun's desk. A high-definition 3D image projection immediately appeared on one of the walls of the office. This was Yinjing's largest CN station, which was broadcasting a high-definition interview with Du Han and eldest young master Du live. From the huge projection, one could clearly see the luxury and beauty of the Du family's villa, which made countless citizens couldn't help but stop and watch. At this moment, the interview in the villa was being watched by everyone. A reporter. Mr. Du, is what Ms. Li said just now true? Did you have a crush on Miss Su when she was still in high school 10 years ago? Su Rue, Li Meiwan. Of course what I said is true. Our family's Xiaowan was the school flower at that time, and many boys liked her. A reporter. Mr. Du? Su Rue, yes, I like school flower Su. If the plot in a certain world also counts, well, so what if he admitted it? Hearing Su Rue's answer, the female reporter was also stunned for a moment. The camera's lens directly zoomed in and hit Su Wan's face. At this time, Su Wan was pulling Su Xiaosu and whispering to her. Feeling the camera suddenly zooming in, she couldn't help but raise her eyes, pull Su Xiaosu's hand, and greet the audience in front of the camera with a smile. It has to be said that the predecessor in each world was very good-looking, and in this world, the original owner's appearance was pure and gentle. Now that she has changed her soul, the whole person has Su Wan's original cold elegance. Now that she has such a brilliant smile, she instantly captured the hearts of the male audience. In the office, Du Chun was also in a trance when he saw Su Wan smile. Thinking back to when he was in college, he just caught a glimpse of her clean and pure smile and fell in love with her at first sight. In retrospect, the past seemed to be still vivid in his mind. After all, it was once true love. How could it be so easy to forget it completely? But that is what Big Brother said true. Did he really know Su Wan before him? At this time, the TV interview continued. A reporter. Mr. Du, are you admitting that you and Miss Su are a couple? Then why didn't you choose to marry her 8 years ago? And according to the information we have, 7 years ago, Mr. Du Chun, who is your younger brother, once pursued Miss Su and even got together with her. What do you think of this matter? Here comes the explosive point. Here comes the explosive point. At this moment, looking at the skyrocketing ratings, the director was happy, but a reporter in the villa was trembling and his face was pale under Su Rue's knife-like cold eyes. Woo woo woo. Mr. Du Han's eyes looked so scary. Director, I want to go home. The air in the villa seemed to be frozen, and the room was filled with oppressive silence. When everyone thought that Du Han would directly turn hostile and end the interview, eldest young Master Du, who has always been rigorous and calm in the eyes of the public, suddenly opened his mouth again. I have always liked Su Wan, but she didn't know. Later, my parents wanted me to find a woman to marry and have children. At that time, I thought of her, but she had just been admitted to college at that time. You should know that according to international conventions, you can't get married at that age. So I could only find someone to tamper with her physical examination when she was admitted. Later, I found a doctor to get her eggs and then did a test tube baby. A reporter. Eldest young Master Do, is it really good for you to say this with a serious face? You've already stolen someone's ovaries. Is an international convention marriage law that difficult for you to enforce? Chapter 192. Inside the skyscraper of the Do Financial Group, Do Chun sat on his swivel chair and saw his brother tell the truth of the matter with a serious face on the screen. Although he felt it was inconceivable, second young Master Do believed it. That's right, in Do Chin's eyes, isn't his family's Nissan an existence with a worrying EQ? Therefore, it was absolutely normal for a high school student who had a crush on a female student to not dare to confess because of his age and not dare to propose because of international conventions. So, eldest brother knew Soo-won first, and Soo-won never knew eldest brother? But although he felt that the truth of the matter should be like this, Do-chun always felt that something was wrong at this time. After being shocked by eldest young Master Do's repeated outspokenness, a reporter handed the microphone to Soo-won for the first time. Miss Soo, according to an insider, just 2 months ago, you were still preparing to marry Mr. Do-chun. So, what made you break up with Mr. Do-chun and choose to be with Mr. Do-han? Facing Soo-won, who obviously lacked fighting power, a reporter immediately raised his head and stuck out his chest, his words sharp. There are some things I don't want to reveal in front of the public. Soo-won faced the camera and microphone, gently tilted her head and raised her hand to stroke the loose hair on her forehead. It is said that this posture is the most photogenic, and Soo-won is dirty. Reporter. Miss Soo, you don't want to say? Don't want to say? Or don't dare to say? The female reporter saw that Soo-won intended to avoid it and naturally pressed her step by step. A reporter who doesn't seize the opportunity to interrogate the interviewer is not a good reporter. Hearing the female reporter's unrelenting question, Soo-won smiled. Her gaze swept across the female reporter's body, and then she spoke again. Don't wash your dirty linen in public. You guys are forcing me like this. If I don't say it all the time, will people think that I have a guilty conscience? Chi Yujia. Reporter Chi, have you ever been wronged? Have you ever experienced the feeling of being unable to speak? Chi Yujia's face changed slightly when she heard Soo-won's question. That's right. Soo-won looked at her a few more times just to see the reporter's work card. Chi Yujia. Oh no. I seem to have accidentally offended the Do family's eldest young mistress. Will I be banned? I'm so scared, director. I want to go home. When the reporter's heart was full of tears, Soo-won had already raised her hand and called over a robot housekeeper in the Do family's villa. Everyone knows that Do-han has high achievements in the field of high-intelligence robots. All the servant robots in the Do family were personally designed by him. These robots actually don't only do housework. In the case of personal privacy, they will turn on the monitoring function all day long. Once there are abnormal situations and unfamiliar people in the villa, they will sound the alarm. Hearing Soo-won's words, it didn't matter if it was the people in the villa. Everyone watching the live broadcast was stunned. The most surprised person was none other than Do-chun. He actually knew nothing about this. At this moment, Do-chin's hands were trembling slightly. Why does the robot at home have such a function? Why didn't Big Brother tell him? Why did Soo-won mention this matter at this time? Could it be Do-chin's mind suddenly thought of the sentence Soo-won had just asked? Have you ever been wronged? Have you ever experienced the feeling of being speechless? Sure enough, next, Soo-won entered a certain command, and a screen immediately popped up on the robot's chest. On the screen was a scene that happened in this hall more than 2 months ago. At that time, Soo-won was holding a box of patches in front of little Lingli with a fawning expression and asked him softly, Little Tian, where's your mother? Have you always lived with your mother? Why are you asking this? Is little Tian something you can call? You vixen. A little mistress who specializes in destroying other people's families. Do you think you're worthy of calling me by my name? Hearing the little boy's words, Soo-won's face suddenly turned pale. Who taught you this? Is it your mother? Who is she? What does she want? I'm not a mistress. Do-chun and I truly love each other. Every mistress says that they are their true love. Hearing Soo-won's words, the little Shota rolled his eyes in disdain, and then his immature face was filled with an ice-cold expression. If you're sensible, then hurry up and leave. Don't always covet things that don't belong to you. Otherwise, If something happens to your greedy parents, then it'll be too late for you to regret it. At that time, little Tian did threaten Suwon like this. He wanted to scare Suwon away, but seeing that Suwon had been enduring and not leaving, he naturally made a move against Su Jianjun and his wife. At this time, Suwon on the screen showed an incredulous expression. You're still a child. How can you talk like that? You. Before Suwon finished speaking, little Tian's face suddenly changed on the sofa, and he raised his hand and poured the box of patches in Suwon's hand on himself. Whoa, Aunt Su, I just want to eat pudding. It's fine if you don't give it to little Tian, but why did you pour it on me? Also, little Tian is not a child without a mother to teach him. Little Tian has a mother and a father. Suwon, that what's going on? While Suwon was dumbfounded, a slender figure rushed in with a cold expression. Suwon, what did you do to him? Dad. Seeing Du Chen's figure, little Tian immediately looked aggrieved and burrowed into his arms with tears and snot. Little Tian is not a child without a mother to teach him. Why did Aunt say that to me? Little Tian is so sad. Little Tian originally liked Aunt Su very much, but I don't want to like her anymore. Achun, it's not like this. Suwon saw that little Tian was distorting the truth and immediately raised her hand nervously, wanting to pull Du Chen's sleeve to explain. Little Tian, who was leaning in Du Chen's arms, felt Suwon's approach and immediately trembled and leaned into Du Chen's arms with a pale face. Seeing that she scared his precious son, Du Chen's face darkened. Get lost. Don't touch me. Du Chen, you don't believe me? He's lying. He's lying. Hearing Du Chen's cold words, Suwon was stunned in place. At this time, she could only defend herself again and again. But he's only 5 years old. Suwon, you wronged a child like this. Do you think I will believe you? That's right. Who would believe that a 5-year-old child would be so scheming? No one would believe it if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes and experienced it for themselves. When the entire video was played, everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone knew that second young Master Du suddenly had a son some time ago, but he was married and had a wife, so it was normal for him to have a son. However, everyone had always thought that Du Chen was still single. After Ling Qiyu left, the media interviewed Du Chen, and he only said that the two people broke up because their personalities were incompatible. This so-called breakup was naturally understood by everyone as divorce. After that, Du Chen did not specifically explain this matter. In his opinion, it was very easy for him to unilaterally dissolve the marriage with Ling Qiyu, but at that time, he did not meet the right person, so this matter has been delayed. Reporter Chi, what do you think now? When everyone was silent, Suwon suddenly spoke again. Hearing Suwon's question, Chi Yujia subconsciously asked, is this true? As you can see, even if you saw it with your own eyes, you don't think it's true, let alone those who haven't seen it with their own eyes. Speaking of this, Suwon suddenly faced the camera and showed a wry smile. I used to love Du Chen so much that I wanted to die for him. So after my parents took the Du family's money and took me away, I committed suicide, but I didn't succeed. This was the story of the original owner. Suwon wanted to clear the name of the original owner in front of everyone at this time. She was not a greedy and vain mistress, nor was she a scheming and sinister woman who deliberately destroyed other people's feelings. She just loved her lowliness and her cowardice. After moving, I became very introverted, very timid, and didn't like to interact with others. I was afraid that the Du family would find us, but I also looked forward to Du Chen coming to find me. But what was Du Chen doing at that time? He married Ling Qiyu. My parents have been hiding this from me, and I didn't know about it until a few days ago. How sad. How ridiculous. Du Chen always said that I lied to him, said that I said one thing to his face and another behind his back, said that I am a malicious woman. Then what about him? Did he really love me? If he really loved me, why didn't he come to me? Why? In the end, he couldn't get rid of the identity of the Du family's second young master. He only knew how to get drunk and use the method of marrying another woman to compete with his parents, and the result was that he harmed the lives of 2 women at the same time. I was driven away by him and abandoned by him. I once thought that I would never be happy in this life, but at this time, Du Han came back. Speaking of this name, Su-won subconsciously glanced at Su-rue, her eyes full of bright happiness. He taught me how to love. I am very lucky to have met him in this life. Even if I am misunderstood by the whole world, he will always stand behind me and accompany me until I grow old, until I disappear from this world. The final confession was what Su-won wanted to say to Su-rue the most. Chapter 193. As night fell, the entire Yinjing city was still shining with neon lights. Du-chun sat on the sofa on the top floor of a 68-story skyscraper. When he looked up, he could see the stars in the sky from the transparent roof. Du-chun, will you always love me? That day was also the first time he held his beloved's little hand under the starry sky. The pure girl blinked her bright and clear eyes and looked at him uneasily. Her tone was filled with fear and uneasiness from the depths of her heart. They came from completely different classes, and she had always felt inferior about this love. Su-won, I love you. I will love you all my life. My heart will never change. Never change. Heart. Never change. Du-chun couldn't help but murmur. It's said that young people don't talk about love. Back then, what was it that moved your heart that you couldn't forget? Or was it that innocent and brilliant smile under the sky full of stars? He had already almost forgotten about it, and he clearly felt that he wouldn't love her anymore. But why did he suddenly feel so much pain in his heart? Young Master Du, I'm sorry. It's our dereliction of duty. Su-won did once commit suicide. It was on the train that their family left Yinjing. Because the location of the incident was special and the time was relatively far away, we didn't find it the first time. The private detective's guilty voice rang in his ears again. Du-chun rubbed his forehead irritably with both hands. When he raised his eyes again, the starry sky had turned into the same face. After moving, I became very introverted, very timid, and didn't like to interact with others. I was afraid that the Du family would find us, but I also looked forward to Du-chun coming to find me. But what was Du-chun doing at that time? He married Ling Chiue. Su-won, it's still Su-won. Now his mind was full of Su-won. Du-chun felt that he was going to be driven crazy by her. No, he wants to go back. He wants to go back. Du-chun hurriedly got up, grabbed his coat, and went straight out of his room. Booze. Yufeng, who had been guarding the door, saw Du-chun's figure and immediately followed quickly. Boss, where are you going? Go home. Du-chun spat out 2 words coldly. Hearing his voice, Yufeng couldn't help but step forward and block Du-chun's way. Boss, now all the media are guarding the company's entrance in the Du family's villa. Once you go out, I'm afraid. What am I afraid of? Du-chun's eyes became colder and colder. When his parents had an accident, didn't he support the Du family's dynasty? What was he afraid of? There was nothing in this world that Du-chun was afraid of. Du family villa. Because of the interviews broadcast from morning to night, the atmosphere in the Du family at this time was a bit weird. Well, to be exact, since Ling Chiue broke through the encirclement and brought her son back, the atmosphere in the whole hall was very weird. At this time, Ling Chiue was looking at her son with a serious face. Tonton, what else do you want to say to your Aunt Sue? Tian, Ling Li. Seeing that her son had been lowering his head and pouting his mouth and pretending to be pitiful without speaking, Ling Chiue's anger immediately rose. She saw the interview this morning when it was broadcast. She really didn't believe that her son would be such a child. At that time, Ling Chiue's first reaction was that Su-won was faking it. She was putting on a show so that she could wash away her reputation and at the same time splash dirty water on herself and her son. But when Ling Chiue hurried to the kindergarten to confront her son, she saw her son with a group of gangsters, and Ling Chiue also had an impression of those people. At that time, Su-won's parents owed a lot of money, and the debt collectors were from that gang. They ran amok in Yinjing and were very arrogant. There was no need for any unnecessary explanation. Ling Chiue knew that the most important thing she should do now was to take her child abroad and never come back again. However, she was a mother, and little Tian was brought up by her own hard work. She didn't want to see her son go astray from an early age. So, she took her child back to the Du family. She wanted to finish everything, then divorce Du-chun and leave this place forever. What's the point of pretending to be mute? Seeing that Ling Li had been silent, Su Xiaosu's eyes flashed, and she suddenly rushed in front of Ling Li. She raised her hands and pinched both sides of his face fiercely. "Hey, elder sister, I knew that you were planning something with your head down. Why are you pretending to be pitiful? Aunt, look, little brother Tian doesn't have a single tear. He doesn't realize his mistake at all. You have to spank him hard. Go away." Being exposed by Su Xiaosu on the spot, Ling Li couldn't help but glare at her fiercely. A pair of white and chubby little hands struggled to pull Su Xiaosu's hand away. But who is Su Xiaosu? A robot. So, Ling Li's little friend ended up in a tragic situation. The two of them fought back and forth and finally both fell to the ground and rolled around happily on the expensive and unparalleled carpet. "Let go." "I won't let go." "Let go, or I'll bite you." "Bite me. Bite me. I don't know pain anyway." Seeing the two children rolling around in the hall in a mess, Ling Qiyu became even angrier. She was about to get up and pull her unlucky child up, but Suwan raised her hand and stopped her. "Qiyu, don't worry about them. Tian, he is still a child. I won't really be angry with him today. I have to apologize to him for doing these things. No matter how talented or black-bellied a child is, a child will always be forgiven. And I know his mood." Suwan raised her eyes and looked at Ling Qiyu in front of her seriously. "He has followed you since he was a child. This child is much smarter than the average child. I think he actually cares a lot and wants a father in his heart. So, he misunderstood me and wanted to drive me away because he felt that I would take away his father. Any child will resist when their most beloved toy is taken away, not to mention that is his father." Suwan. Ling Qiyu lowered her eyes and looked at Suwan seriously. It was undeniable that because her son spoke ill of Suwan every day, Ling Qiyue's original impression of Suwan was not very good, but now she had begun to change her view of her. Seeing the female lead looking at her apologetically, Suwan couldn't help but smile at her. "That's right. I'm here to break up you and that scumbag. Don't thank me. Please call me Lei Feng." Seeing that the two mothers were about to become Huaxia's best bestie, Su Xiaosu, who was tired from rolling on the ground, finally frowned and stood up. "I'm not playing with you anymore. I'm running out of battery. I have to go to the charging point." "Ling Li, what the hell is charging? And who's playing with you? If you have the ability, then stand still and come back. See if I don't. In short, one day I will be able to beat you." It has to be said that in Ling Li's evil and domineering life, as a winner in life, the only tragedy was that he could never beat Su Xiaosu. When he was a child, he really couldn't beat her. After growing up, he was reluctant to part with her. Chapter 194. In the end, the little friend Ling Li reluctantly apologized to Su Wan under his mother's stern gaze. After that, the little boy pulled his mother upstairs with a straight face. Su Xiaosu had already gone upstairs to charge. Only Su Rue and Su Wan were left downstairs. As for Su Jianjun and his wife, the couple could finally hold their heads up high today. After the live broadcast ended, their phones almost exploded with calls. The debt company also took the initiative to call and tell them that they did not need to pay the rest of the money. Even their relatives, who were completely unrelated to them, were now all coming to help. Who didn't have a little bit of vanity? He was doing well and wished he could let the whole world know. Su Rue was also very clear about Su Jianjun and his wife's careful thoughts. Su Rue waved his hand and directly assigned bodyguards to the two of them. He also made 2 cards for the driver. Now, the two of them might be spending money somewhere. The world was big, but consumption was the biggest. Su Rue didn't plan on doing anything to this vain couple, as long as they didn't cause trouble for him and Su Wan. With Du family's financial resources, supporting them for 10 lifetimes wouldn't be a problem. It must be said that Su Rue and Su Wan had also been CEOs and daughters before. But to be honest, only in this world did they truly understand what money is just a number meant. That's right, the Du family's wealth was set to rival a nation's. "Wife, why don't we go upstairs and sleep?" Seeing that everyone had left, Su Rue couldn't help but lean against his wife. "I missed you. Miss my ass. We haven't been apart for a day, okay?" Su Wan admired General Su's ability to lie through his teeth. This General Su's expression didn't change. Actually, little Su Rue misses you. You pervert. Su Wan felt that General Su was becoming more and more shameless. I am a hooligan, and only you. While speaking, Su Rue had already pounced on Su Wan with a smile, pressing Su Wan under his body. The servant robot, who had been standing in the corner of the living room waiting for orders, saw the scene on the sofa, and its eyes flashed red. Ding! Scanning a scene not suitable for children. The video recording function was turned off. The computer is in automatic hibernation. Therefore, high technology and whatnot were really awesome. Just as Su Rue and Su Wan were laughing on the sofa, the door of the villa was suddenly pushed open and Du Chun, who was in a sorry state, quickly entered the door. With a bang, the door of the villa was slammed shut by him. The irritation on Du Chun's face hasn't faded yet. The moment he raised his eyes, he happened to meet the eyes of the two people on the sofa. What are you doing? The scene in front of him made Du Chun's face immediately turn cold. Su Wan blinked her eyes, looked at the black lines on General Su's face, and then looked at the inexplicably cold face of Du Chun. Second brother, you're back? What can we do? I was just about to go back to my room to sleep. Saying this, Su Wan turned sideways and hugged Su Rue's neck. Hubby, hug me. Let's go back and sleep. Be good. Hearing his wife's words, General Su's expression finally looked better. He carried his wife and ignored Du Chun, who was at the door. Su Rue turned and strode upstairs. Du Chun. Second young Master Du, who had spent a lot of effort to get rid of the media outside the door, felt very sad at this moment. He was so gorgeously ignored by his elder brother. Of course, this was not the main point. The main point was that the moment he entered the door, he saw Du Han's whole body pressing on Su Wan's body. Du Chun's heart actually felt very uncomfortable, and Su Wan's second brother was simply a blow to his heart, emptying Du Chun's HP bar immediately. Isn't that right? Why did he come back so anxiously? Didn't he just want to make it clear to her? At this time, Du Chun's heart was extremely tangled. He suddenly didn't know what he wanted. Sitting on the sofa somewhat dejectedly, Du Chun lowered his head and put his hands in his hair, looking particularly lonely and frustrated. Ling Qiue, who had just coaxed Lingli to sleep, came out of the bedroom and saw the lonely man on the sofa. She couldn't help but stop. Do I still love him? After being humiliated by him, Ling Qiue ran away in anger. At that time, she was still pregnant with Lingli. When life was difficult, it wasn't that she didn't think of coming back to find him, even. Just like what Su Wan said in the interview. Every woman is emotional, love of fantasy. At that time, Ling Qiue also fantasized that one day Du Chun would suddenly appear in front of her and then say to her with a gentle face, "Wife, I'm here to take you home." But, in fact, it was really just a fantasy. How unrealistic. The story of Su Wan and Du Han made Ling Qiue truly aware of her naivety. True affection should be like how Du Han treats Su Wan. No matter how many years have passed, when you are at your lowest, I will appear in front of you, smile affectionately and say to you, "Come home with me." With me here, you don't have to be afraid of anything. That is love. Ling Qiue sighed in the bottom of her heart and was about to turn around and leave, but she saw Du Chun downstairs suddenly raise his head and his eyes met hers. Ling Qiue froze for a while before speaking in a low voice. "You're back?" Seeing Ling Qiue's gentle and indifferent face, Du Chun suddenly remembered the words Tian Tian said in the video. "Vixen, mistress, why is a 5-year-old child's brain full of those things?" "Ling Qiue, how have you been teaching my son all these years? Did you teach him to say those insulting words to Su Wan?" "You think it was me?" "Sure enough, he has never changed, always so self-righteous. If it wasn't you, who else could it be?" Hearing Ling Qiue's rhetorical question, Du Chun coldly curled his lips. "Did you really come back to divorce me this time? Why didn't you send the divorce agreement directly to my company and instead let Tian Tian come back alone to acknowledge her?" "Ling Qiue, what are you thinking? If the video Su Wan played was true, then why would a child do such a thing? There must be someone teaching him behind the scenes, and besides Du Chun, there was only Ling Qiue by Tian Tian's side. Du Chun, you are always so conceited. I have nothing to say to you. I have already signed the divorce agreement. I hope to see your signature tomorrow morning. That's all. Ling Qiue turned around coldly. This time, there was no trace of attachment. Her heart that was moved by her son died again at this moment. Seeing Ling Qiue leave, Du Chen bent down and swept the things on the coffee table. Divorce? Yes, but Tian Tian is his son and must be with him in the future. The next day, the media surrounding the Du family's villa increased unabated. Tian Tian also became famous because of the video and could no longer go to kindergarten. Ling Qiue had almost handed over all her work in the country. She was waiting for Du Chan to sign the divorce agreement, and she would immediately leave with the child. As usual, Su Rue and Su Wan did not go downstairs to eat breakfast, but Su Xiaosu, who was fully charged and full of energy, sat at the long table in the dining room and ate with relish. Not ladylike at all. Seeing Su Xiaosu's table manners, little Tian Tian couldn't help but mock her. Eating won't shut your mouth. Why are you looking at me? Haven't you seen a beautiful woman before? Su Xiaosu retorted without hesitation. Himph. You want to fight with your sister? Little brother, you are still far from it, do you? Lingli, all of you, shut up and eat your food. Hearing the voices of the two people, Du Chun, who had been eating silently with a cold face, couldn't help but shout coldly. My name is Su Xiaosu, not Du Yu. Su Xiaosu couldn't help but correct him. Who the hell is Du Yu? Can she be more adorable than this Miss Su? Su Xiaosu? Du Chin's eyes narrowed. He hadn't paid much attention to this robot. He didn't expect his brother to change her name, and it was even surnamed Su. Chapter 195. Because of Du Chin's existence, the breakfast table was a lot colder. When the two children finished eating, Ling Qiue handed the divorce agreement to Du Chen. Sign it. Her only request was for them to part on good terms. Sign. The corners of Du Chen's mouth rose and a smile flashed in his long and narrow eyes. Name a price first. What? Ling Qiue was taken aback and didn't understand Du Chen's meaning. I have hands and feet and can support myself. I don't need your alimony. Alimony? Du Chen was slightly startled, then raised his eyebrows disdainfully. I'll let you name a price. Lingli will be raised by me in the future. What did you say? Hearing Du Chen's unreasonable request, Ling Qiue's whole body trembled with excitement. Du Chen, don't go too far. Lingli is my son. I gave birth to him and raised him. You have never done the responsibilities of a father all these years. What right do you have to fight with me for custody? You can talk to the lawyer about this, but let me tell you, Ling Qiue, don't say that I have 100% evidence to support me in fighting for custody. Even if I don't have any chance, I can still win against you because I am Du Chen. The two words Du Chen were not just a name in China. He represented endless wealth and glory. Ling Qiue's body swayed, and her face turned pale. Yes, what did she have to compete with Du Chen? But she only had little Tian Tian as her only relative. This was her only relative and her most beloved son. She couldn't just watch him leave her. Even if there is only 1 in 10,000 chance, I will fight for it to the end. Du Chen, I really didn't expect you to be so heartless. Ling Qiue clenched the divorce agreement in her hand. If you want to see me in court, then let's see you in court. Mom, Dad. At this moment, Lingli, who was supposed to be playing in the living room, suddenly appeared behind the two people. His immature little face carried an unprecedented blank emotion. You want to go to court? Going to court was a very distant thing for ordinary children. They didn't understand what the word court meant at all. But someone as smart as Lingli naturally knew the meaning of their words. Be good, Tian Tian. This is an adult's matter, don't worry about it. Ling Qiue couldn't help but soften her voice to comfort her son, while Lingli just looked at her with wide eyes and then looked at Du Chen. Can't you two reconcile? Mom, haven't you already forgiven Dad? Is it because of Auntie Sue? I'll apologize to her again. I'll apologize to her every day. Okay? This has nothing to do with Su Wan. When Du Chen heard Lingli mention Su Wan again, the emotions he had suppressed for a day and night finally erupted at this moment. It was a mistake for me to marry your mother back then. It was the Ling family who schemed against me and sent her to my bed. I was drunk that day and mistook her for Su Wan. Du Chen, enough? Ling Qiue interrupted Du Chen's words hoarsely, but unfortunately, she was still a step too late. Little Lingli was stunned. A look of fear that he had never seen before flashed in his eyes. It turned out that Dad had never loved Mom. They did not break up because of the appearance of a mistress, as she had imagined. Dad hated Mom, so he also hated himself, right? He turned out to be a child who was not expected. Some truths were so cruel. Over the years, Ling Chua never mentioned Du Chun in front of Ling Li. Every time the child asked about his father, she would also use other things to brush him off. Little Ling Li's life experience was an eternal pain in Ling Chiu's heart, but now Du Qian had undone this layer of healing on the surface in front of the child, but the inside had long festered into a scab. I hate you. I hate you. This was the first time Ling Li shed tears since returning to the country. The little genius had always felt that he was already a man and could only bleed and not cry, but that he wanted to cry so much. His tears were so salty. His small body was filled with endless sadness at this moment, and Ling Li stumbled out. Tianyuan. Ling Chiyue wanted to chase after him, but was suddenly stopped by Du Chun. Don't go. Nothing will happen to him in the yard. Du Chun knew that he had made a slip of the tongue, so his voice was a lot gentler at the moment. I shouldn't have said this in front of the child, but these are the facts. Tian is so smart, he will know one day. You also know that that will be a long time in the future. At that time, maybe he will have grown up and understand that emotional matters can't be forced. But now he is only 5 years old. Du Chun, how can you be so cruel? Ling Chiyue felt her heart hurt. This man, how can this man be so cold-blooded? In the garden of the Du family, Ling Li sat alone in the middle of the flower bed, looking at the colorful flowers around him. His eyes darkened. All liars, all ruined. All should be ruined. He raised his small hands and frantically plucked the fresh flowers from the bushes. Then, he used his feet to step on them forcefully. Ouch, you black-hearted boy. How dare you trample on my father's flowers? Su Xiaosu, who followed behind Ling Li, looked at the little figure in the bushes that had fallen into a breakdown and couldn't help teasing. You. Hearing Su Xiaosu's words, Ling Li coldly raised his eyes and glared at her fiercely. And you, your father, your mother, you are all bad people. What's wrong with being bad people? We like to be bad people. It's better than your scumbag father. Su Xiaosu rolled her eyes and then strode to Ling Li. Little brat, if you know what's good for you, hurry up and get out here for elder sister. Otherwise, don't blame elder sister for being rude to you. I'm not going out. Do you have the ability to bite me? Ling Li heard Su Xiaosu's arrogant words and couldn't help puffing out his chest. Then Su Xiaosu really pounced on him and bit Ling Li's shoulder fiercely. Ugh, it was you who told me to bite you. I won't be polite and let's start, Ling Li. Why is it that this genius doesn't have a super high martial strength in so many settings? This doesn't make sense. On the 3rd floor of the villa, separated by a clean and transparent crystal window, Su Wan and Su Rue stood side by side. Looking out from the window, the two little ones in the garden looked particularly small. I remember that there are a lot of thorny roses planted in the garden. These two brats wouldn't be covered in wounds, right? Seeing the two people hugging each other and rolling around in the flowers again, Su Wan couldn't help but ask worriedly, It's nothing. Su Rue smiled and shook his head. Su's settings have a medical function. Even if Ling Li is injured, she can help him with the most appropriate treatment. So, with Su Xiaosu in hand, there's no need to worry about outdoor travel. Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wan nodded with relief. Yes, she almost forgot again that Su Xiaosu is just a robot with feelings. However, once a robot has human feelings, what's the difference between her and a human? She also has joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. There's love in her heart, and she can cry and laugh. Even Su Xiaosu, who can clearly use electricity as her body's energy source, is still a gluttonous foodie. Of course, those things won't be digested even if she eats them. They will only be treated as garbage and regularly discharged from her body. Such a robot looks particularly advanced, but in fact, it's extremely sad. If we leave, what will Su Xiaosu do? Su Wan suddenly couldn't help but ask. Su Xiaosu is the daughter created by Su Rue. The meaning of her existence is to be with her parents, but Su Wan and Su Rue will always leave this world. But what about Su Xiaosu? As long as her mainframe is not damaged, as long as there is still energy, she will continue to live. Then let's stay in this world a little longer and wait for her to grow up. Su Rui looked at the figures of Su Xiaosu and Lingli in the flowers and whispered softly, "When she grows up, she will also have someone she likes, right?" Su Xiaosu can still grow up? Hearing Su Rui's words, Su Wan was completely stunned. Robots can still continue to grow? I don't read much. Don't lie to me. This body naturally can't grow, but... Su Rui smiled mysteriously. I prepared an adult gift for her when she turns 18. That's a brand new body. Okay, Su Wan admired General Su's foresight and foresight. However, these two parents, have you ever thought about the feelings of others? Your daughter has always had the face of a 7-year-old Lolita, and then suddenly became an 18-year-old girl overnight. Who can accept this? In any case, a certain young man expressed his inability to accept it. Chapter 196. Lingli was really injured. His tender skin was full of tiny wounds. Of course, the most serious one was the scar on his shoulder, which was bitten by Su Xiaosu. Do you want to know what it feels like to be bitten by a robot's sharp teeth? I advise you not to attempt it. Tian. When Du Chun rushed to the garden, Su Xiaosu was pressing Ling Li's whole body to the ground and forcibly treating his wounds. Ouch, can you not move? The medicine will spill later. Seeing the little boy under her twisting around with a tsundere expression and not wanting to be treated by the enemy, Su Xiaosu couldn't help but be in a good mood. You don't want to be treated by me, but I will treat you, get lost. Don't touch my son. And at this time, Du Chun arrived. Du Chun had always been very annoyed with this robot at home, especially when he knew that this child turned out to be Su Wan and his brother's child. The disgust in his heart became even stronger. After all, Su Xiaosu was not a combat robot. The reason why she was able to bully Lingli properly was because her body was a head taller than Lingli, and now that she was pushed by Du Chun, who was a body taller than her, Su Xiaosu immediately fell as if she was weightless. Oh, I'm so scared. Dad, save me. Hey, why did you push her? Lingli watched Du Chun push Su Xiaosu out and immediately couldn't help but question. But then he looked at Du Chun's back in shock. Su Xiaosu did not fall to the ground, but fell into a warm and comfortable embrace. Are you okay? Su Rui lowered his eyes and looked gently at the little person in his arms. Dad. Su Xiaosu pursed her lips, her big eyes full of grievance. Dad, that scumbag bullied me. Woo-woo. Su is so pitiful. Du Chun. Su Rui put down his daughter in his arms, his eyes cold, and called out in a low voice. Apologized to Su. Brother? Du Chun turned his head and looked at Su Rui behind him with an incredulous look. You're telling me to apologize to a low-level robot? Big brother, are you crazy? Du Chun hadn't finished speaking when Su Rui's body suddenly rushed in front of him. A slender and powerful hand grabbed Du Chun's throat. I told you. To apologize. Du Han, calm down. Su Wan, who just ran out of the villa, saw Su Rui's movements and immediately became anxious. Just now, the two of them were still upstairs. In the end, when he saw Du Chun forcefully pushing Su Xiaosu away, Su Rui's breathing changed at that time. He opened the window and directly jumped down from upstairs. Su Wan understood Su Rui's temper too well. He wouldn't allow anyone to bully the people he set his eyes on. Not even a single strand of hair could be touched. And now, as long as Su Rui exerted a little more force, Du Chun would probably die. Du Han, let go. Su Wan rushed over anxiously and looked at Du Chun, whose face was already blue and breathing was not smooth. Her face immediately changed, and she used all her strength to lift her hand to pull away Su Rui's restraint. Then she patted Du Chun's back nervously. Du Chun, how are you? You scumbag, if you want to die, at least die far away. Don't drag my man down with you, that's right. This was the true portrayal of Su Xiaosu's inner activities. But in Du Chun's eyes, all of this was like this. When Du Chun was about to be out of breath due to his big brother's choking, Su Wan's anxious figure immediately appeared in his gradually blurred vision. She was clearly so far away, but Du Chun strangely saw the fear and uneasiness that came from the bottom of her heart. She Is she worried about me? At that moment, Du Chen's heart was particularly complicated. He tried hard to make a sound and kept trying to struggle his body, but the strength in his body was gradually fading away. He couldn't use any strength at all. Is Big Brother really going to kill me? Why does he hate me so much? Du Chen was a little absent-minded. He couldn't figure it out, and the next moment, he felt that he seemed to have glimpsed the truth of the matter. Du Han, let go. Suwon actually quarreled with Big Brother for him? At that time, Big Brother's expression changed, but Suwon still used all her strength to move his hands away and successfully rescued herself. Du Chen, how are you? At that moment, the anxiety in Suwon's tone, the fear in her expression, and the warm and trembling hands she used to support him made Du Chen's heart palpitate. He just knew that she still loved him. She had always loved him. Student Du Chen, overthinking is a kind of disease. Do you know that? Cough, cough. Breaking free from Su Rue's grip, Du Chen coughed a few times with a pale face. Seeing that he was still alive and kicking and not dead, Suwon finally breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Fortunately, he wasn't dead. Xiaowon. At this time, Du Chen, who had finally recovered some strength, raised his hand and wanted to grab Suwon's slender jade hand next to him, but Su Rue, who was standing on the other side, had a cold gaze and pulled Suwon to his side first. Wife, he won't die. Don't worry about him. You and Susu take Lingli to the ward on the 4th floor for treatment. Du Chen, come with me to the study. I have something to say to you. As he spoke, Su Rue pushed Suwon to Su Xiaosu's side and turned to walk towards the door of the villa alone. Have a talk? Du Chen stared at Su Rue's back, his gaze slightly cold. It was time for him to have a good talk with his big brother. Xiaowon, I'm going. Turning his head and whispering a few words to Suwon, Du Chen quickly followed Su Rue's footsteps. Suwon, is the male lead sick? Suwon complained, and then beckoned Su Xiaosu to come in front of Lingli. At this time, Lingli had already stood up from the ground, and his expression was particularly complicated. It couldn't be helped. The brain of a person with a high IQ is always running at high speed. Maybe they can circle the earth in a second. That is definitely an existence that we mortals can't imitate. Let's go upstairs. Do you want me to help you? Suwon looked at Ling Li's expression and asked with a smile. I don't need your fake kindness. Ling Li glared at Suwon coldly again. This brat, what are you talking about? Su Xiaosu couldn't stand it anymore and came up to Ling Li. Little brat, you haven't been bitten enough, have you? Ling Li, let me make a deal with you. Let's not bite people next time. Okay? It really hurts, obviously. Su Xiaosu's sharp tongue left a lot of shadow in little Ling Li's heart. So when he heard her words at this time, Ling Li frowned but did not counterattack as quickly as before. Go. I'll go. I don't need you to help me. Ling Li raised his head and strode past Su Xiaosu and Suwon. Looking at his departing back, Su Xiaosu blinked proudly. Mom, am I very powerful? Yes, our family's Susu is the most powerful. Chapter 197. The medical room on the 4th floor of the Du family was equipped with specialized doctors, nurses, and medical robots. After sending Ling Li to the doctor, Suwon came out of the ward with Su Xiaosu. Ling Qiuyue was standing anxiously at the door. Just now, she had been making international calls and contacting her friends abroad. She wanted to find some evidence that was beneficial to her or an excellent lawyer. In case she really went to court with Du Chun in the future, she must be prepared first. She didn't expect that her son would be injured just by making a phone call. At this time, Ling Li's anger had not subsided. When he entered the door and saw his mother, he pretended not to see her, so Ling Qiuyue didn't dare to enter the ward directly and could only wait outside hesitantly. Xiaowon, is Tian okay? Seeing Suwon come out with Su Xiaosu, Ling Qiuyue immediately asked nervously. It's okay. It's all superficial wounds. It's not a big deal, don't worry. Suwon comforted Ling Qiuyue, then narrowed her eyes and asked softly, Does he know something? And Ling Qiue's expression was a little gloomy. He knows about what happened between Du Chun and me back then. Now Du Chun is going to sue me for custody of Tiantian. Xiaowon, I'm so scared. If Tian refuses to forgive me, will I lose him? I only have him now. Hearing Ling Qiue's words, Su Wan just raised her hand and patted her shoulder comfortingly. Don't worry, Du Han and I will help you. Really? Ling Qiue's eyes widened in surprise when she heard Su Wan's words. She looked at Su Wan gratefully. Really? You will really help me? Of course, we. Before Su Wan finished speaking, she heard the door of the study downstairs being kicked open, followed by the sound of porcelain shattering. General Su seemed to be having a heart-to-heart talk with the male lead in the study. Well, looking at this situation, it must have broken down. Su Wan quickly walked to the staircase and listened for a while. Du Chen's cold voice slowly came from the door of the study. Du Han, don't go too far. What have you done for the Du family all these years? I'm the only one supporting the entire Du Corporation. You only know how to research your smart robots, and now you're even bringing a robot home as your precious daughter. You're crazy. Now you are simply unreasonable. Today you want me, the dignified CEO of the Du Group, to apologize to a robot. Tomorrow you want me to give the entire Du Group to her? Du family? Su Rue, who was in the room, heard Du Chen's words. He, who had been sitting in his original position without moving, narrowed his eyes slightly. The Du clan is yours and mine. Du Chen, don't forget that you only have half of the inheritance rights of the Du clan. Hearing Su Rue's words, Du Chen's face darkened at the door. That's right, in his parents' will, they divided all their property equally to the two brothers. Because Du Han only wanted to do robot research in the past, he never managed the Du family and never used a penny from the Du family. After a long time, Du Chen almost forgot about this matter. Du Han, what do you mean? When the Du family was facing a crisis, you didn't care. Now that I've led the Du family on the right track, you want to talk to me about inheritance? What do you want? Half of the Du family? No, no, no. Hearing Du Chen's words, Su Rue just shook his head. I'm a man with a wife and children now, and I need my own career. So, from tomorrow onwards, I'm going to work in the Du family. Don't worry, I don't want your CEO position either. Su Rue picked out a document from the desk that had been prepared a long time ago and threw it on the carpet in the study. Xinghong Electronics, this is a high-tech product branch of the Du family. I want you to make it independent and give me full authority to manage it. Xinghong Electronics. Du Chen glanced down at the document on the ground. The 4 words on it were printed very clearly. This was indeed the largest branch of the Du family, and its annual profits were also very abundant. However, compared with the entire Du financial group, its profits only accounted for 10% of the Du family's industry. You only want Xinghong Electronics? Du Chen raised his eyes and looked at Su Rue again, asking somewhat uncertainly in reply, Oh, didn't you say that I only study robots? I want this company. Su Rue slowly stood up and stared at Du Chen's eyes with a pair of sharp eyes. How about it? This condition is not too much, is it? Good. Du Chen didn't hesitate and nodded vigorously. I will deal with this matter when I return to the company tomorrow. In the future, although Xinghong Electronics will still be working in the Du family's building, it will become a private industry under your name. In the future, any products produced by this company and the various profits generated by this product will have nothing to do with our Du family. Deal. With Xinghong Electronics in hand, General Su's face finally looked better. He was going to use this small Xinghong Electronics to nibble away at the entire Du family bit by bit. This was interesting, wasn't it? The two sides finally reached an agreement. Du Chan turned around with a cold face and walked from the door of the study to the stairs. As soon as he looked up, he saw Su Wan standing there. At this time, Du Chen noticed that Su Wan was wearing a long white dress today, just like the pure white color in his memory. Xiao Wan. Unconsciously, Du Chen quickened his pace and soon arrived in front of Su Wan. Xiao Wan, He felt that he had 1,000 words to say to her, but at this moment, looking at the person who was close at hand, Du Chen suddenly didn't know what to say. Su Wan looked at Du Chen rushing in front of her with a tangled look on his face. She couldn't help but frown. Male lead, what do you mean? I just finished negotiating with General Su, and there's still no end to it. You still want to negotiate with me? Just as the two people were thinking about each other, a loud noise suddenly came from outside the villa downstairs. What's wrong? Du Chun came back to his senses and turned on his electronic communicator to contact the security guards outside the villa. Second young master, it's Master Su and Mrs. Su. They came with a group of friends and said they want to visit the Du residence. What? This Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan really can't stay idle. Visit the Du family? Only they could think of this. Hearing the report of the security guards, Du Chin's face immediately turned cold. He was about to order people to drive away those messy people when Su Wan's voice suddenly came from the communicator. Let them in and entertain them well. This is. Du Chun raised his eyes and met with Su Wan's smiling eyes. At this moment, he seemed to suddenly know the reason why Su Wan chose to be with Du Han. It must be because of Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan. Back then, they could disregard their daughter's lifelong happiness for the sake of money. Now, they can naturally force their daughter to marry someone she doesn't like for the sake of money. If it's really because of money, Du Chun was confident that what Du Han could give them, he could also do the same. Do as eldest young master instructed. Du Chin also immediately ordered. Also, immediately instruct the kitchen to prepare meals and entertain the guests. Who doesn't know the route of father-in-law and mother-in-law? Chapter 198. That night, Du family's villa banquet hall. The spacious and luxurious banquet hall was filled with all kinds of delicious food. Several waiters and robots in uniform shuttled through the crowd. The bright crystal gem chandelier on the ceiling dazzled Su Jianjun's eyes. Big brother Su, I feel like I'm dreaming now. A middle-aged fat man sitting next to Su Jianjun raised his glass and looked at Su Jianjun, who was already reeking of alcohol. His chubby face was full of envy. Thanks to you, big brother Su, I have the opportunity to eat such delicious food and drink such expensive red wine in my life. TSK. I didn't expect this wine to be so strong. It's really flavorful. Hearing the middle-aged fat man's words, Su Jianjun waved his hand weakly. These are nothing. Let me tell you, my daughter, our family's Xiao Wan, is the Du family's eldest young mistress. Do you know? Do you all know? The Du family's money is her money. How much money does the Du family have? If I raise all of you, I won't be able to spend it all even after 10 lifetimes, Speaking of this, Su Jianjun narrowed his eyes again, but his gaze had already found the other side, admiring the backs of the beauties in the crowd. It must be said that today's incident was caused by Su Jianjun alone. Yesterday, he and Li Meiwan took Su Rui's money, so naturally, they returned home with honor. The two people found their old neighbors and relatives and treated everyone to a big meal. As a result, Su Jianjun got drunk. After getting drunk, he began to habitually brag again, saying how good the Du family was and how powerful the couple's words were. At that time, someone asked impatiently, "Can you invite us to the Du family to have a look? Let us also see the legendary Nouveau Riche Villa." Hearing someone so supportive, Su Jianjun naturally waved his hand. No problem. Isn't it just a tour of the Du family's villa? I'll take you there tomorrow. No one is allowed to leave. All go. Then it became like this now. In fact, after Su Jianjun woke up today, he regretted his promise last night, but he had already promised and said big words. Now he could only be forced to do something beyond his capabilities. Fortunately, his son-in-law Du Han was really awesome. Not only did they really let these messy people in, but they also prepared a banquet for them. The wine and dishes at the banquet were all made according to the standards of the Du family's private banquets. Even a simple salad was several times more expensive than the ones in a 5-star hotel. In short, Su Jianjun now feels that he has more face and is more comfortable in the latter half of the night. The noisy banquet hall gradually quietened down. By now, there were only a few guests who could stand by themselves. Most of the people were drunk. They were on the carpet, under the table, on the sofa, and even in the bathroom. Ever since they moved in, the Du family's villa had never been left in such a mess. In the hall, there were already robots responsible for cleaning the scene, while others were responsible for carrying these drunk guests to another small villa outside the main villa for guests to rest. From beginning to end, Du Chun stood upstairs and watched all this with cold eyes. He saw Li Meijuan's vanity and Su Jianjun's greed and lust. It was such a couple, but they were Su Wan's parents. At this moment, he suddenly felt distressed for Su Wan. If she didn't have such a pair of greedy parents, would they have been able to stay together all the time, never have to be separated, and wouldn't have to go through so many twists and turns? They would get married and have their own children. The boy would definitely be as smart as Tian Tian, and the girl Su Xiaosu's face flashed in Du Chen's mind. That face was too similar to Du Han's. Du Chen's eyes immediately turned cold. He is now powerless to change the past, but what about the future? What can he do? This night, Du Chen tossed and turned all night and couldn't sleep. The next day, Du Chen got up a little later than usual. When he went down to the dining room on the first floor, he saw Su Wan's family, Du Han, Su Xiaosu, as well as Ling Qiuyue and Tiania. Everyone was eating at the dining table, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Morning. Du Chen walked to the dining table and gently greeted them, then habitually sat down in his seat. His appearance changed the atmosphere at the dining table slightly. I'm done eating. Little friend Ling Li was the first to leave the dining table, and Ling Qiuyue naturally left with him. Last night, Ling Li also thought a lot. He knew that he couldn't blame his mother. If his mother didn't love him, she wouldn't have worked so hard to insist on giving birth to him and even endured hardships to raise him. Well, in fact, they lived a good life abroad, so it can't be considered enduring hardships. But in any case, his mother must love him the most. Ling Li was very sure of this. So when he woke up from the hospital bed early this morning and saw Ling Qiuyue sleeping soundly by the bed, little friend Ling Li decided to forgive her. As for Du Chen, little friend Ling Li, who finally realized that his father was a scumbag man, felt very sad. He couldn't accept the setting of, my father is a scumbag man, for a while. So this was naturally his reaction when he saw Du Chen again. Seeing the mother and son leave, Du Chen's expression remained unchanged. He lowered his eyes and ate breakfast gracefully. After eating, Du Chen looked up at Su Rue, who was constantly fawning over Su Wan, and said softly, Big brother, are you going to work with me today? Son-in-law, are you also going to work at the Du clan? Hearing Du Chen's question, Li Meiwan was the first to speak. Although Du Han was also the young master of the Du family and had endless money, people's desires and greed were endless. Who in China didn't know of Du Chen's glory? They were both sons of the Du family, and Du Han was the eldest. If it weren't for the fact that Du Han's face was too serious and his aura was too strong, Li Meiwan would have long gone up to him and urged him to compete with Du Chen for the Du family's property. And, hearing Li Meiwan's question, Su Rue just nodded lightly, then he looked up at Du Chen again. If the company can be transferred today, I will go to the company with you to have a look. Dad. Seeing that Su Rue was going to work, Su Xiaosu couldn't help but pull his arm intimately. Dad, I also want to go to your company to play. Can you take me there? Okay. Su Rue responded with a smile on his face. Now that Su Xiaosu's matter and her identity were no longer a secret, Su Rue didn't have to take into account other people's opinions at all. When Du Chen left the villa with Su Rue and Su Xiaosu, Li Meiwan and Su Jianjun immediately leaned in front of Su Wan. Daughter, you and Du Han are now considered famous. When are you going to get your marriage certificate? Get my marriage certificate? Su Wan blinked. It was done yesterday. In this world, you can take a 3D projection photo to get a marriage certificate. You don't have to go there in person, and with Du Han's identity, it doesn't need to be so troublesome. Hearing that their daughter and Du Han were legally married, the couple immediately nodded in satisfaction. Xiao Wan, since you are now a member of the Du family, you should also have your own career. A man's heart can change at will. A woman can't rely on a man all her life. She has to rely on herself. You see, the Du family has a big business. I heard that they also have a chain of beauty salons. Mom thinks that this is pretty good. It's not worth much in Du Han's eyes. How about you take over that chain and run it yourself? What do you think? I'm not interested in beauty, and I don't have the time. Hearing Li Meijuan's words, Su Wan leaned lazily on the sofa. Guarding the Du family's diamond mine, she doesn't have to worry about food and clothing. Why does she have to go out and work by herself? Su Xiaosu felt that it would be good to be a rice worm in this world for a lifetime. Even if the Du family is gone in the future, she still has General Su. In short, she doesn't have to worry about anything. You don't have time, but I do. I can help. Hearing Su Wan's answer, Li Meiwan couldn't help but point to herself. Xiaowan, Mom is here. You can rest assured. Rest assured? It's because you guys are here that I'm really worried. After saying so much, it's actually you who wants a beauty salon, right? Du Han didn't give you enough money to open one for yourself? If you don't know how to open one, you can buy one at a high price. Suwan couldn't help but sit up straight and look at Li Meiwan and Su Jianjun in front of her. I'll tell you one last time. If you lack money, you can ask Du Han and me for it. In your next life, just eat, drink, and play. Don't have any ideas about the Du family, and don't have any extra crooked thoughts. Otherwise, even your own daughter can't save you. Chapter 199. The Du Clan. The handover of Xinghong Electronics went very smoothly. Early in the morning, all the senior employees of the Du Clan received the news that the eldest young master had made Xinghong Electronics independent and run it himself. The employees of the other departments were still busy with their own things. These changes had no effect on them, but the old employees of Xinghong Electronics were all worried. A new emperor brings his own ministers. Now many people are privately talking about the eldest young master and the second young master falling out because of love. Now that the eldest young master has independent Xinghong Electronics, the situation of these old employees is very bad. Everyone in China knows that the eldest young master Du has his own laboratory, which specializes in robots. There are a group of very professional high-tech talents in that laboratory, and any one of them is several times better than the ordinary employees of Xinghong Electronics. Just when the Xinghong Electronics on the 28th floor was in a gloomy fog, Du Chan, who was sitting in the office on the top floor, was looking through the information about Su Jianjun and Li Meiwan that Yu Feng had sorted out for him. This Su Jianjun really has a lot of bad habits. Du Chun closed the information and gently rubbed his eyebrows. Su Jianjun is greedy, lustful, and timid. Although such a person is the best to rope in fact, he is not very useful at all. If there is any sign of trouble, he will immediately turn the spearhead and become a traitor. In contrast, Li Meiwan is an existence worth roping in. A vain, scheming, and greedy woman. As long as you give her a little sweetness and let her gradually inflate her ego, she will be completely lost in the world of money and power. Li Meiwan is interested in the beauty industry under the Du clan? Du Chen raised his hand and gently tapped on the information, asking in a low voice. Yes, boss. According to our investigation, she has said more than once in front of her good sisters and relatives and friends that her son-in-law will hand over the Eve chain to her in the future. Yu Feng stood aside and answered Du Chen's question with a serious face. Okay, help me draw up a contract. From today onwards, Li Meiwan will be the CEO of the Eve chain. Du Chun smiled slightly, and his words had already decided Li Meiwan's future. Boo. Although Ms. Li is Miss Su's mother, she doesn't know anything about the beauty industry, and our Eve is to serve the entire upper class. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to do this? For the first time, Yu Feng had an objection to Du Chen's decision. Hearing his words, Du Chun just smiled coldly. I know she doesn't know anything. Ignorant people are the best to control, and when it comes to Eve, she has to deal with those noble ladies all day long. As vain as Li Meiwan, what will she do? How exciting! Catching a glimpse of the sneer that flashed across Du Chen's face, Yu Feng immediately lowered his eyes and stood aside. I know what to do. How many people in this world could resist a beautiful trap paved with money? Since Su Rue began to take over Xinghong Electronics, his life has suddenly become busy again, and because he did not lay off employees, but also greatly improved the welfare of all old employees, which made the big stone in the hearts of Xinghong Electronics fall to the ground. Compared to before in the Du family, everyone seems to be more motivated now. Su Xiaosu still liked to circle around Su Rue. She loved the laboratory full of precision instruments because she was born in Su Rue's laboratory. Every day when she returned home from the company, Su Xiaosu would take the initiative to tell Su Wan about the fun things in the company. Because her voice was too loud, it made little friend Ling Li frown, but Ling Li sat on the side sullenly. Isn't it just going to Dad's company to play? What's there to show off? This genius is not going. Childish. Tian. At this time, Su Rue, who had changed into a black home suit, appeared in front of Ling Li uncle. Ling Li still respected his uncle very much. It couldn't be helped. Since the last time he saw in the garden that his uncle could fly from several stories high to the garden to pick up Su Xiaosu. At that moment, Ling Li knew that his uncle was by no means an ordinary person. Tian, our company's computers are going to upgrade their security system recently. Would you like to go to the company with me tomorrow to take a look? Ah, what? Ling Li blinked and looked at Su Rue blankly. Uncle, what is a security system? And? Seeing this black-bellied little brat playing dumb with him, Su Rue raised his eyelids. A security system is a program in a computer that can prevent it from being attacked by external data. Although our company's technology is already very advanced, correspondingly, the current hacker technology is also very powerful. For example, the super hacker codenamed 77. Have you heard of him, Tian? Ling Li. What the hell is 77? The signature this genius left was clearly LL, which is the abbreviation of Ling Li, okay? Which person with bad eyesight could see it as 2 sevens and finally named it 77? Tian? Su Rue called again, and Ling Li finally reacted. Uncle, Sister Susu said that your company is very fun. Then I'll go play with her tomorrow. Good boy. Seeing that the little brat was so sensible, Su Rue smiled in satisfaction, straightened up and waved at his wife. Wife, go upstairs and rest. I'm sleepy. Oh. Su Wan kissed Su Xiaosu and then went upstairs with Su Rue. When both of them left, only Su Xiaosu and Ling Li were left downstairs. The two children looked at each other and turned their heads with great disdain. Upstairs in the bedroom, Su Rue pulled Su Wan into the room. The two of them first made out for a while, then took some hot water to take a bath. When Su Wan came out of the bath, she saw Su Rue sitting on a soft chair next to the bed in his pajamas, reading some information. What are you looking at? Su Wan walked around from behind, and a pair of jade arms gently wrapped around Su Rue's neck. Her black hair still carried a hint of fragrance and moisture, all scattered on Su Rue's shoulders. This is some information about the Du clan. As Su Rue spoke, he raised a hand and hooked the ends of Su Wan's hair with his fingers, twirling them around his fingertips. Wife, have you seen Li Meiwan and Su Jianjun these past few days? Them? I haven't seen them all day. Did they get into trouble outside? Hearing Su Rue's question, Su Wan knew that something must have happened. It's not a big deal. Su Rue's tone was a little careless. Du Chan gave the position of CEO of the Du clan's beauty chain brand to Li Meiwan. What? Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wan's eyes widened in surprise. Did water enter Du Chen's head? What was his purpose in doing this? To curry favor with Li Meiwan? To frame Li Meiwan? None of this seemed to have the slightest benefit for him. Hearing Su Wan's question, Su Rue suddenly didn't know how to answer. He felt that it was mainly because he was too outstanding, and because his wife had been by his side for too long. She naturally and automatically shielded herself from those wild bees and butterflies in the outside world. So, Su Xiaosu, in fact, Du Qian still has feelings for you. You don't know, right? You definitely didn't see it, right? Yes, this is the effect I want. Chapter 200. Du Skyscraper, CEO Exclusive Elevator. This was Ling Li's first time coming to the Du clan. Du Chun wanted to get close to his son with a smile on his face along the way, but Ling Li's face was cold the entire time, looking like an iceberg soda, making Du Chen's thoughts all go to waste. Seeing Ling Li putting on a cold face at Du Chun, Su Xiaosu stood on the other side and kept blinking at Ling Li, making Ling Li have no choice but to lower his head and not look at her. Otherwise, he felt that he would definitely roll his eyes. Su Xiaosu, that's enough. On the 28th floor, the elevator door opened and Su Xiaosu was the first to rush out. Susu is here. Susu, this is the breakfast Annie bought for you this morning. Susu, this is the milk that sister just made for you. Susu, you're not mistaken. In the entire Xinghong Electronics, the most popular person is not their boss, General Su, but this delicate and cute robot Su Xiaosu who can play dumb and act cute. Su Rue had long been accustomed to such a scene, but when Ling Li, who followed closely behind them, saw Su Xiaosu being surrounded by a group of people eating and drinking with a silly smile on her face, he finally couldn't hold it in and rolled his eyes fiercely. He remembered that it was the first time he fought with Su Xiaosu. After losing, Lingli got up in the middle of the night and went to the kitchen to find water to drink. As a result, he saw Su Xiaosu's head still lit up in the middle of the night, giggling and stealing food in the kitchen. That scene really made Lingli feel drunk just thinking about it now. Is it really good for a robot to be so greedy? Aren't you afraid of short-circuiting? Su Xiaosu answered Ling Li's question like this. My motherboard is waterproof and fireproof. Not only can I eat and drink, but I can also cry. Look, this is a pear blossom in tears. Hey, this is called tears streaming down my face, and this is called tears falling like rain. Pouring water out from both eyes, your sister's tears falling like rain. Are you trying to make a flood? It was this so-called 81 ways to cry that made little friend Lingli want to laugh whenever he saw a girl cry when he grew up. Over time, everyone who knew him knew that he was inhumane and unsympathetic. In short, because of Su Xiaosu's existence in Lingli's childhood, the shadow of his childhood was so big that it couldn't be asked for. Okay? Come to my office. Su Rui didn't call Lingli over to watch Su Xiaosu. Since Xinhong Electronics was independent by him, many consortia outside have been eyeing Xinhong Electronics' new products, and some illegal groups have hired a large number of computer hackers to invade Xinhong Electronics' main system and steal their research data. In terms of artificial intelligence programs, Su Rui was an expert among experts, but he wasn't very good at system security protection. Fortunately, he knew that Lingli was a genius hacker. With his cheat halo, he could definitely ensure that Xinhong Electronics' main system was foolproof. Oh. Hearing Su Rui's call, Lingli turned around and followed him into the office. After that, Su Rui instructed his assistant not to let anyone disturb them. In the blink of an eye, an entire morning passed. By the time Lingli used his pair of short hands to help Su Rui encrypt the security system of the entire main system, he was already so hungry that he was powerless. No matter how much of a genius he still had to feed others, right? Thank you for your hard work. Su Rui looked at the exhausted little Shota, his tone indifferent. In fact, he had never treated Lingli as a child. I owe you a favor for today's matter. In the future, if you and your mother have any problems, you can come and ask me. And? Hearing Su Rui's words, Lingli suddenly raised his head and looked at Su Rui, his eyes very sharp. I can solve our matters by myself. Thank you for your concern. Oh, is that so? Su Rui smiled faintly and looked at Lingli with a deep gaze. If that person was your father, would you also deal with him? Su Rui knew that Lingli also had a group of foreign mercenaries, but would he use those people to deal with Du Chen? This was obviously unrealistic. In the original plot world, all of Lingli's trump cards were used to help Du Chen and Ling Qiuyue. Every time Du Chen was in trouble, he would secretly find someone to help him. A father and son duel could only happen in this world. Father. Lingli froze for a moment. He knew that his mother had been busy with the lawsuit recently. She had been a lot quieter recently, and her whole person was haggard. Lingli had a clever and exquisite heart. He understood that his mother was working so hard and everything was because of him. He also wanted to try his best to make his father give up the idea of fighting for custody, but in the past few days, every time he talked about this topic with Du Chen, the two people would part on bad terms. Du Chen always treated him as a 5-year-old child. Well, although he was really only 5 years old, he already knew a lot. Okay? If things really reached the point of a lawsuit in court, Lingli would naturally stand on his mother's side without hesitation. He believed that even if Du Chen was strong, he would never be able to forcibly tie him back to the Du family, right? It had to be said that although Lingli's thoughts were already very mature at this time, he didn't have much real social experience after all. At this moment, he didn't understand at all that the most unpredictable thing in this world was the human heart. Qiuyue, I want to see you. When Ling Qiuyue received a call from her biological mother again after many years, she was in a trance. Although her family had brought her so much pain and hurt in her past life, the Ling family had left her with more beautiful and warm memories. When she was a child, her mother was gentle, her father was loving, and her brother was very close to her. When she grew up, the family business grew bigger and bigger and her parents became busier and busier, but even at that time, their family was still harmonious and very happy. Ling Chiyue put down the phone and hesitated for a long time before deciding to meet her mother. The place where the mother and daughter met was a coffee shop. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, Ling Chiyue wouldn't have believed that the old woman with the weathered face in front of her would be the well-maintained and elegant mother in her memory. "Mom, why are you?" Sigh. Ling Chiyue's mother sat in front of Ling Chiyue and sighed deeply. "Chiyue, how are you doing now?" "I am fine, Mom, you are?" "It's good that you are doing well." Ling Chiyue's mother smiled and interrupted Ling Chiyue's question. "I also recently read the reports in the newspaper to know that you are back. Your son is very cute. He is really beautiful. His name is Lingli. His nickname is Tong." When mentioning her son, Ling Chiyue's eyes immediately softened. She didn't know the kindness of her parents if she didn't raise her son. At this time, she was also a mother. Seeing Ling Chiyue's happy smile, Ling Chiyue's mother's expression flashed with a complicated struggle. "Chiyue, I am actually. Mom, do you have something to say to me? Say it." Before going to the appointment, Ling Chiyue had actually thought about many possibilities and even prepared for the worst. At this time, her face was very calm, but in fact, her hands under the table couldn't help trembling slightly. "No, nothing." Ling Chiyue's mother finally just smiled at her. "Mom just wants to see you. That's it?" For a moment, Ling Chiyue also looked at her mother with some suspicion. "Mom, you look a lot older. Have you lived a bad life these past few years? Where are Dad and Big Brother?" Although she still resented them so much in her heart, Ling Chiyue couldn't help but ask. When she left, the Ling family's business had gradually recovered because of Du Chen's help. Could it be that after she left, Du Chen vented his anger on the Ling family, causing the Ling family to fall into this state? Chapter 201. Grand Hyatt Hotel, the most luxurious five-star hotel in Yinjing City. In the hotel's presidential suite, on the messy and soft big bed, Su Jianjun was hugging the beauty in his arms and puffing out smoke. Brother Jun, the enchanting woman on the side, wrapped her hands around Su Jianjun's neck. "You promised me that you would arrange for me to work in the Du clan. You can't pull up your pants and go back on your word." "Am I that kind of person?" Su Jianjun took another puff of smoke and looked a little proud. "Don't you know who I, your brother Jun, am? My daughter is the eldest young lady of the Du family. She has the final say in the Du family. Now even second young master Du has to curry favor with me, let alone arranging a job for you. It's absolutely not a problem for you to be a senior staff member of the Du clan." "Really?" As soon as the woman on the side heard Su Jianjun's words, her eyes shone. "A senior staff member of the Du clan? They are all super white-collar workers who have a car to pick them up and can live in high-end apartments in the city center. How much money is a month's income?" Thinking of this, the woman's eyes were full of tenderness. Brother Jianjun, you must help me. I'm already your person. Be good. My little baby." The thing that Su Jianjun couldn't resist the most was beautiful women acting coquettishly towards him. He puffed out a smoke ring and was about to give the little beauty next to him a hot kiss. At this time, the door of the suite was suddenly opened from the outside and Li Meiwan, dressed in jewels, rushed in with a group of noble wives. "Su Jianjun, are you tired of living? And you little slut, you even dare to seduce this old lady's man? Sisters, beat this vixen to death for me." For a moment, the room was in a mess. At night, Du house. Su Jianjun, whose face was scratched with red marks, was kneeling by the sofa with a resentful look on his face. Li Meiwan still had a cold expression, grabbing Su Wan's hand and constantly scolding Su Jianjun. "It's right to say that men become bad when they have money. Your father is such a coward, and he still plays with women. He doesn't even look in the mirror to see his own virtue." There was no end to Li Meiwan scolding Su Jianjun. Su Wan was already drowsy on the side. Seeing that Li Meiwan was getting angrier and angrier, Su Wan finally couldn't help but raise her hand to stop her from speaking. "Mom, since you two don't have feelings for each other anymore, why don't you divorce and live your own lives?" Looking at them, Su Wan felt vexed. Just what kind of feelings did these two harbor all these years? Divorce? Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Jianjun's eyes lit up while Li Meijuan's face sank on the sofa. "I won't divorce." Su Wan looked at Li Meiwan in surprise. She was the one who scolded Su Jianjun the most just now. Why did she refuse when it came to divorce? Does Li Meiwan really love Su Jianjun? Now, he's relying on the fact that his daughter has married well and is rich and powerful. He wants to dump me and find a new lover. Dream on. Li Meiwan had long noticed the joy in Su Jianjun's heart. If this was 8 or 10 years earlier, when she was still young, Li Meiwan wouldn't hesitate for a second if he wanted to divorce her. But now? She had accompanied him until she became a yellow-faced old cabbage, and now he wants to spend money to find a little tender grass? Pimph, a fool's dream. Hearing Li Meiwan's words, Su Wan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This Li Meiwan is really a person who can't be provoked. She wants to waste Su Jianjun's life. However, Su Wan didn't intend to care about these trivial matters between the two of them. Since you don't want a divorce, then continue to make do. I'm tired. I'll go upstairs first. Wait, Xiao Wan. Li Meiwan saw that Su Wan was going back to her room and immediately stood up and grabbed Su Wan's arm. I'll accompany you upstairs. Mom has some intimate words to say to you. Hey, what about me? Su Jianjun, who was still kneeling on the carpet, couldn't help but raise his head and look at Li Meiwan pitifully. Why is he pretending to be pitiful? You continue to kneel. Housekeeper robot, record the whole process for me. If you dare to be lazy for even a second, I'll make you kneel all night. Li Meiwan glared at Su Jianjun fiercely, and then pulled Su Wan upstairs. As soon as they entered Du Han's room, Li Meiwan first looked around. There are no cameras in this room, right? No, Du Han is not an exhibitionist. Why would he install a camera in his bedroom? Su Wan was a little speechless, but looking at Li Meiwan's nervous appearance, she also guessed that Li Meiwan might want to talk to her about some more secretive topics. Mom, what the hell is the matter with you? Making it so mysterious. Su Wan pulled Li Meiwan's hand and asked anxiously, Daughter, tell Mom the truth. Do you like Du Han or Du Chun? Since being promoted to CEO, Li Meiwan felt that her horizons had broadened and her connections had also broadened. Among the noble ladies she came into contact with, which one of them didn't know the situation of the Du family? Although the two young masters of the Du family were both local tycoons, there was always a difference in status. It was obvious that Du Chun, who was in charge of the Du family's economy, was the head of the Du family. And Li Meiwan's work this time was also personally arranged by Du Chun. In the recent days of contact, although Du Chun did not say it clearly, Li Meiwan had already cleverly understood Du Chun's thoughts. It turned out that he had always been thinking about his daughter Ah. This made Li Meiwan's thoughts uncontrollably move again. Although a woman does not serve two husbands, if her daughter really likes Du Chun, then she might as well persuade her to leave Du Han and return to Du Chun's embrace. If she likes Du Han, then she would have to take her time to think about it. Hearing Li Meiwan's question at this time, Su Wan's eyes turned and she also thought of the most fundamental reason. It's Du Chun. He must have released a signal to Li Meiwan that he still had feelings for her, which made Li Meiwan so tempted. Greedy people really never know how to be satisfied. Before Su Rue appeared, when they were driven out by Du Chun, this couple only wanted to get some benefits to pay off the debt. Later, Su Rue gave them money that they couldn't spend, and Li Meiwan wanted the Du family's business. Now that Du Chun has given her this opportunity, she will only become more and more greedy and want more and more. Mom, why are you asking this? I'm already Du Han's wife. What's the point of saying this now? Since Li Meiwan was so greedy, Su Wan simply gave her a chance. She wanted to see to what extent this woman could go for her greed. Daughter. Hearing Su Wan's ambiguous answer, Li Meiwan felt that she had an idea. If Du Chun can change his mind and is willing to marry you, will you divorce Du Han? Divorce? Su Wan sneered in her heart, but her face still showed a conflicted expression. Mom, don't talk about this. I'm already Du Han's woman. It's impossible for me to be with Du Chun. Hearing Su Wan's words, Li Meiwan also hesitated for a moment. Although Du Chun has this intention now, second young master Du has a lot of previous convictions. He hasn't even settled Ling Qiwei yet. If Su Wan and Du Han really fell out, and Du Chun changed his mind, wouldn't she be left empty-handed? Moreover, the most important thing is that Du Chun now has a son, who is the rightful first heir. Thinking of this, Li Meiwan's eyes turned and she immediately had a plan in her heart. Daughter, think about it yourself first. Mom will help you. And hearing Li Meijuan's words, Su Wan just nodded and then sent her out of her bedroom. Chapter 202. When Su Rue returned from the company at night, it was already very late. When he returned to the bedroom, Su Wan had already taken a shower and fallen asleep. He couldn't help but bend down and kiss her forehead. Su Wan, who was sleeping soundly, felt his breath and slowly opened her eyes. You're back. It's so late again. Yeah, I've been busy lately because I have to develop a new product. Oh. Su Wan sat up from the bed, her hair scattered over her shoulders. She was sleepy and looked particularly lazy. Hubby, what's Duchin doing recently? Why do you suddenly care about him? During this period of time, Su Wan only cared about eating, drinking, and accompanying Su Xiaosu. In this world, he planned on letting Su Wan relax and have a good rest. The air was clean, the technology was high, and the Du family had everything they wanted. Most importantly, they had Su Xiaosu. So when he heard Su Wan suddenly ask about Du Chun, Su Rue was indeed a bit surprised. It's nothing. Today, Li Meiwan came to test me. I think Du Chun must have promised her some benefits. You also know that Li Meiwan is much greedier than Su Jianjun, and in her eyes you, the eldest young master, is definitely not as valuable as Du Chun, the second young master. Li Meiwan? Su Rue sneered. What new tricks can a jumping clown come up with? If she really dares to do anything unfavorable to you, I'll make her disappear immediately. General Su would never be polite to someone who wasn't the main character of the world. She doesn't care about me. I just feel that she might do something to Ling Qiue and Ling Li, according to Li Meijuan's personality, if she wants her daughter to be second young master Du's wife. Ling Qiue and Ling Li are definitely the biggest stumbling blocks. Then she must be tired of living. Su Rue really wanted to light a row of candles for Li Meiwan, daring to scheme against the female lead and the genius baby. Just wait for your group to be annihilated, wife. Don't bother about them. One dead is one less. Su Rue suddenly pressed down on Su Wan. I'm so tired. I've been working all day. Wife, hurry and comfort my exhausted heart. Go take a shower. Su Wan disdainfully pushed Su Rue off the bed. In the end, General Su was too strong and directly dragged Su Wan onto the carpet. The two of them looked at each other and finally couldn't help but laugh. Mom. Suddenly, the door was pushed open. Su Xiaosu walked in quickly in her pajamas. Su Rue. He'd forgotten that Xiaosu had a master key in her program that could unlock many electronic locks. What a blunder. Ah, they're showing off their love again. Su Xiaosu looked at the two people on the ground with messy clothes. She opened her mouth wide and said with a cute face, Do you want me to restart the system and do it again? Stupid girl. Su Rue cursed in a low voice and then pulled Su Wan up from the ground. What do you want to do so late? Don't tell me that you can't sleep and are afraid of the dark. Robots don't have that many functions. Su Xiaosu looked at Su Wan with a wronged expression. Mom, look at Dad. He's so fierce. Didn't I disturb him showing off his love? How can he be so heartless, shameless, and unreasonable? Su Rue. Su Wan shrugged her shoulders and quickly walked to Su Xiaosu. Su, what's wrong? Mom, I heard Aunt Qiue crying in Ling Li's room. She was crying so miserably. Is she dying from some terminal illness? It's all like this in TV dramas. Su Wan. Is the love of watching melodramatic TV dramas contagious? However, Ling Qiue crying in Ling Li's room, could it be? Su Wan and Su Rue looked at each other. Su Rue shook his head. Don't worry about her for now. It should be Du Chun who did something. Ling Li will deal with it. He should learn to be a man and protect the women in his family. Su Wan was also convinced by General Su's logic, but when she thought of Ling Li's halo, Su Wan also nodded. Well, they just need to destroy Du Chen and Ling Qiue. A broken mirror reuniting and whatnot. Scumbags don't deserve it. Su Xiaosu. She suddenly felt that Ling Li was so pitiful, okay? This lady will be magnanimous and try not to bite him when fighting in the future. It's decided happily. Leaving Su Rue's room, Su Xiaosu gently walked to her room. Her room and Ling Li's room were next to each other. As a result, Su Xiaosu had just walked to the door when she saw Ling Li's door open. Su Xiaosu thought it was Ling Qiyu and was about to say hello, but she saw Ling Li wearing a set of bear pajamas and walking out with red eyes. It turned out that he hadn't slept all this time. The two people looked at each other again. Su Xiaosu felt a little guilty. Her eyes flashed and she rushed to say, I stole something to eat. I didn't do anything bad. Do you want to fight? Ling Li just looked at Su Xiaosu and suddenly asked without any rhyme or reason. Su Xiaosu was stunned. Are you sick? Are you the legendary masochist? Do you want to fight? Ling Li still repeated it coldly. He had been pretending to be asleep and he heard Ling Qiyue's words and crying. Mom didn't want him anymore. She didn't want him for the sake of her family. Isn't he the person closest to her? At this moment, Ling Li didn't understand why his mother would treat him like this. He suddenly felt very envious and jealous of Su Xiaosu. A robot can get so much love from Su Wan and Du Han, but what about him? What can he get? What's the use of being smart? What's the use of being powerful? What's the use of winning the world? He's going to lose even his own parents at this moment. Ling Li wanted to cry, but he couldn't. Su Xiaosu was speechless when she saw Ling Li repeatedly asking her to beat him up. Subconsciously, Su Xiaosu activated the emotion scanner. She found that Ling Li's emotions were very chaotic at this moment. Such chaotic emotions made Su Xiaosu feel like she was going to crash. While Su Xiaosu was in a daze, Ling Li had already pounced over. Caught off guard, Su Xiaosu was pounced on by Ling Li, and her whole body fell on the carpet in the corridor. Dude, this is a sneak attack. You're breaking the rules. In a fit of anger, Su Xiaosu subconsciously raised her head and opened her mouth to bite Ling Li. As a result, when she was about to bite, Su Xiaosu suddenly remembered that she seemed to have promised in her heart that she wouldn't bite him in the future. So conflicted, but robots also have to be honest. So Su Xiaosu immediately closed her mouth. As a result, she kissed Ling Li with a smack. Although it was only a face, Ling Li was dumbfounded. Su Xiaosu was also stunned for a moment and said somewhat guiltily, "That, I didn't want to bite you. You're not allowed to cry." So, Su Xiaosu's first kiss doesn't seem to have that item in her settings? Ling Li. What if he was kissed? Should he kiss her back or slap her and call her a hooligan? Both of them were silent for a long time, and finally, Su Xiaosu took the lead to speak. Hey, do you still want to fight? It's time for him to turn off his phone and sleep. Forget it. Forget it. Ling Li quickly stood up and forgot about being abandoned for a moment. Really. Su Xiaosu couldn't help but look at Ling Li in confusion. Human children are really troublesome. Chapter 203. It was still the same coffee shop. Ling Qiyu came to the agreed seat early in the morning. She was absent-minded and her mind was constantly interlaced with Ling Li's cute little face and her mother's tear-stained face. Qiyu, help your big brother. You save him. He actually. That day, Ling Qiyu asked about her father and brother's recent situation. Ling's mother finally couldn't hold back and told her what had happened to the Ling family over the years. At that moment, Ling Qiyu suddenly realized that the truth she had always known was just a lie carefully fabricated by her brother. It turned out that the person who schemed against Ling Qiyu back then was not Ling Yinzhou, but someone else. When Ling Yinzhou arrived that day, Ling Qiyu had already been drugged and sent away. Because that person had booked the best private room in the beginning, but that private room was forcibly occupied by the drunk Du Chun. So Ling Qiyu and Du Chun were indeed a misunderstanding due to a combination of factors. Later, the two of them were blocked by the media. Du Chun's voluntary admission immediately confirmed the matter. At that time, the Ling family actually breathed a sigh of relief. At least Du Chun looked young and handsome. He was indeed a good match. Later, Du Chun also helped the Ling family through a crisis, but at that time, he also said that he would never help the Ling family a second time. In fact, although the Ling family had survived the crisis at that time, they were still on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, Ling Qiyu married well, and they were all relieved. Not long after, the person who had taken a fancy to Ling Qiyu got wind of the rift between Du Chun and the Ling family from somewhere and immediately attacked the Ling enterprise frantically again. Ling Qiyu never knew about all this. At that time, Du Chun took out the check in front of Ling Qiyu because he knew about the Ling family's predicament. In Du Chin's view, wasn't Ling Qiyue's repeated fawning for money? He, second young master Du, had nothing but money. Ling Qiyu didn't accept the money and she returned to the Ling family and said that she wanted a divorce. Ling Yinzhou knew that Ling Qiyu was not doing well, but he couldn't let Ling Qiyu and Du Chen divorce. Once they divorced, she would lose the protection of the Du family. So that day, he didn't hesitate to speak coldly again and again, just because he didn't want Ling Qiyu to stay in her maternal home and find out that something was wrong with the Ling family. At that time, none of them thought that Ling Qiyu would disappear. After Ling Qiyu left, Du Chen didn't care about the life and death of the Ling family. The mastermind behind the scenes didn't find Ling Qiyu for a long time, so he naturally began to force Ling Yinzhou. He felt that once the Ling family reached the juncture of destruction, Ling Qiyu would definitely appear. But he didn't know that Ling Yinzhou had already said it in order to make Ling Qiyu sever her relationship with him. Big brother? Ling Qiyu remembered that a long time ago, her brother liked to look at the stars at night and the sunset on the horizon behind her back. Why did her brother, who loved her so much and had been obedient to her ever since she was young, suddenly become so cruel? Why didn't she notice that something was wrong with her brother? The past few years, the warmth and love, how could it all be a lie? Ling Qiyu raised her hands to cover her face, tears slipping through her fingers. Don't cry. A slightly hoarse voice suddenly sounded in front of Ling Qiyu. She suddenly put down her hands and saw Ling Yinzhou sitting in a wheelchair. He was also a lot more haggard, but his gaze was still as gentle as before. Brother. Ling Qiyu couldn't help but stand up and throw herself into Ling Yinzhou's arms, crying in pain. Silly girl, don't cry. This is a coffee shop. Ling Yinzhou gently stroked Ling Qiyu's hair, his tone full of sighs. I know that mother told you and I know what you want to do. Silly girl, don't do stupid things anymore. Do you know why mother has your phone number? It was Du Chun. He deliberately found someone to leak it. Mother missed you so much that even though I repeatedly advised her not to see you, she still couldn't help it. Ling Yinzhou knew what Du Chun wanted. Although he was disabled, he still maintained the habit of reading the news and newspapers every day. In the past few days, the news that Du Chun and Ling Qiyu were going to have a court battle had already spread. Although the Ling family is gone, father is also. But you still have me, mother and Ling Li. Ling Yinzhou gently stroked Ling Qiyu's long hair, his tone as gentle as ever. After the Ling family went bankrupt, Ling Yinzhou's father secretly invited the mastermind behind the scenes and shot him dead on the spot. Madame Ling was another child of Ling Yinzhou's father. He couldn't bear his child being ruined by a madman. Madame Ling was gone, and he didn't want to live anymore. Ling Yinzhou didn't know about Ling Yinzhou's father's suicide until the next day. After that, Ling Yinzhou's mother collapsed. In order to take care of his mother, Ling Yinzhou had to pull himself together. He once again used his connections to start over, but everyone pushed him when he was down. On the way to start a business again, Ling Yinzhou was plotted against again and his leg was deliberately hit by a car. Because he had no money to treat it, it had been delayed until now. In fact, it was easy to make him stand up again with the current technology, but Ling Yinzhou no longer wanted to join the business of deception. He now did public welfare, occasionally managed his own finances and speculated in stocks. The money he earned was enough for him and Ling Yinzhou's mother's living expenses. It was just that Ling Yinzhou's mother had always felt sorry for him. She had been thinking about how to get a sum of money to cure his legs. Ling Qiyu listened to Ling Yinzhou's mother that day, and her heart was in a mess for a long time. When she came out of the coffee shop, she saw Du Chen's car. In fact, after your father died, the Ling clan owed a lot of money. The debts were all pressed on Ling Yinzhou alone. He didn't tell your mother. Du Chun handed a stack of information to Ling Qiyu. Ling Yinzhou has a chance to make a comeback. He is even very talented, but he doesn't want your family to be involved in the disputes in the business world again. So he chose to live in seclusion and slowly bear the huge debt by himself. That money is enough to pressure him for a lifetime. A lifetime, using a lifetime of burden in exchange for a peaceful life for his family. Ling Yinzhou, how can you be so stupid? Leave Tian to me. Ling Qiyu, you should be able to see that without strong protection, life is so fragile. Du Chen's eyes stared at Ling Qiyu's eyes. I will help Ling Yinzhou pay off all his debts. I can let you come and visit Tian at any time. I promise that those people will not come to trouble you again. Ling Qiue, you should know what kind of choice is the best for you, your family and Tian. At that moment, Ling Qiue wavered. Yes, what can she give Tian? What did she bring to her family? If Tian continued to follow her and encountered the same thing, what should she do? Brother, I have decided. Ling Qiue raised her head and looked at Ling Yingzhou seriously. Tian is so smart, he should have a better life. I will stay here and accompany you and mother. Du Chen promised me that he will let me visit Tian often. Qiue? Ling Yingzhou wanted to say something, but when he saw Ling Qiue's serious and stubborn eyes, he could only swallow the words in his heart. It was because he understood Ling Qiue's stubbornness too well that he acted so ruthlessly back then. After Ling Qiue left the coffee shop, Ling Yingzhou was still sitting in his original position. Not long after, a tall and slender figure arrived. Mr. Duve, when Ling Yingzhou saw the person opposite him, the look in his eyes became a little sharp. Have you considered the matter I told you? The person who came was straightforward and his tone was certain. He already knew Ling Yingzhou's choice. I promise you. Chapter 204. The weather in August was unbearably hot. Suwon took a cold shower and changed into a cool set of clothes. When she came downstairs, she saw Ling Li sitting alone on the sofa playing on the computer. Yes, now Su Xiaosu comes to Su Rui's company every day to eat and drink. Who knows what Ling Qiue is busy with? Most of the time, only Suwon and Ling Li are at home. Taking 2 cans of soda from the fridge, Suwon opened one and placed the other directly in front of Ling Li. Do you want a drink? Ling Li seemed to be stunned when he heard Suwon's voice. He raised his head and glanced at Suwon. His black and dense eyebrows wrinkled, and then he looked at his computer screen with a troubled expression. Suwon, what kind of reaction is this? Do I make you dislike me that much? Forget it if you don't want a drink. Suwon curled her lips. She wasn't stingy enough to keep arguing with a child, even if this child was more mature than the average adult. Aunt Su. At this time, Ling Li suddenly raised his eyes again and looked at Suwon with a pair of big eyes. Can you do me a favor? What? Suwon looked at Ling Li curiously. This little guy rarely took the initiative to talk to her. Here. Ling Li raised his hand and the image on his computer immediately appeared in midair. It was a 3D image and the effect was very high definition. This is. Suwon was a little confused because the image that appeared in front of her was of 3 3D beautiful girls, and each of them more or less resembled the appearance of her current body. What are you going to do? Suwon put away the surprise in her eyes and looked at Ling Li with interest. You can guess it, Aunt Su, you're so smart. Ling Li suddenly began to play Tai Chi with Suwon. Suwon curled her lips. Aren't you just going to find a little lover for Du Chun? You're not really going to find yourself a stepmother, are you? Stepmother. Ling Li narrowed his eyes. I don't want to be separated from mother. If father has a new lover and child, he won't want to separate me and mother anymore. Suwon. This logic seems to make some sense. What the hell? Little friend Ling Li, what you're doing is wrong. Suwon couldn't help but sigh. The world of adults is not as simple as you think. Even if your father gets married and has children in the future, you are his blood. According to his scum character, he will not give up on you. Then what should I do? At this time, Ling Li's mind was blank. He subconsciously asked Suwon, but after asking, he regretted it a little. He was such a genius, and yet he couldn't think of a solution. How could she, who was so stupid, think of it? Who was the one who said Auntie Su was smart? Suwon naturally didn't know what Ling Li was thinking. When she heard Ling Li's question, she casually took a sip of soda and then said in a low voice, You should let nature take its course now. If you want to change everything, you can only make yourself stronger. When you are stronger than Du Chun, then you can control everything. Those who were not strong enough would never have the right to speak. This world is dominated by powerful people. Whether you admit it or not, this is a fact. It was an undeniable reality. Powerful? Stronger than Daddy? Ling Li's eyes lit up. Why didn't he think of it earlier? Auntie Su, thank you. Ling Li looked at Suwon's eyes and thanked her seriously. Although I have always felt that you are not worthy of uncle, but I think you are a good person now. Actually, I'm still not worthy of uncle. In order not to discourage you, I won't repeat it. Suwon. Why am I not worthy of my man? Who was the one who chased her back and forth in a frenzy all those years ago? Suwon raised her brows when she heard Ling Li's words. When Ling Li thought that Suwon was going to get angry at him, she suddenly laughed out loud. Yes, you're so smart. You even saw through this. I'm just not worthy of him. What should I do? Who told him to like me? In fact, Suwon had been really lazy recently. She didn't do anything and didn't even have the passion to do tasks. This was all because she was spoiled by General Su. There's nothing wrong with having such a domineering husband. It's so willful. Suwon, are you showing off? You're definitely showing off. It can't be helped. With such an outstanding husband, Suwon can't keep a low profile even if she wanted to, little Ling Li. When you grow up and meet a woman who you can't wait to love to the bone, you'll know. Pampering her, spoiling her, letting her do nothing and only rely on you. That's also a very happy thing. Suwon liked the current feeling, not doing anything, not thinking about anything, not having to worry about betrayal and loss. They will always be together. They will always be together. She firmly believed in this. Love her, spoil her to the point of lawlessness. Little friend Ling Li felt as if he had suddenly gotten some amazing skills. So, Suwon, you really taught young people wrong. You forcefully educated a great youth who was born as a winner to become a henpecked slave. Sigh, for the sake of your own safety and family status, please cherish your life and stay away from Suwon. When Du-chin returned home, he saw the scene of Suwon and Ling Li getting along warmly. He involuntarily stopped at the door. That's right, this is the right way to go home. Du-chun felt warm in his heart. Shawan really likes Tian. Now that Tian has begun to accept her, then he has to hurry up on his side. In the future, their family of 3 will live very happily. Male lead, do you know that you've gone crazy? What are you talking about? Why are you so happy? Du-chin slowly walked to the sofa and hesitated before sitting next to Ling Li. Little Ling Li's eyes flashed and he smiled at Du-chun. Dad, Aunt Sue is telling me a story again. It's very nice. Suwon, your level of storytelling is really high. Is that so? Tian seems to like Aunt Sue a lot recently. Du-chin patted his son's head excitedly. He liked Ling Li calling Suwon Aunt Sue instead of Aunt Sue. This was how his son should be. Hearing Du-chin's words, Ling Li blinked his seemingly innocent eyes and replied crisply, "Fun likes Aunt Sue very much, but Aunt Sue said she only likes Uncle Du-chun. What happened to the father-son relationship, huh?" Suwon couldn't help but laugh. Tian, you're naughty. Ling Li turned his head and looked at Suwon again. Aunt, don't you like Uncle anymore? How could that be? I like him very, very much. Suwon said with a happy face. That happy smile stung Du-chin's eyes. He couldn't help but stand up and raise his hand to grab Suwon's arm, but Suwon easily dodged it. Second brother, what are you doing? Xiaowon, I have something to say to you. Du-chan suppressed the irritation in his heart and fixed his gaze on Suwon. He felt that he couldn't bear it anymore. Then say it. I'm all ears. Suwon changed her posture on the sofa, but she was still secretly on guard against Du-chin's movements. Let's go outside and talk. Du-chin felt Suwon's vigilance, and he couldn't help but take a step back. I'll wait for you in the garden. Saying that, Du-chin turned and walked out. Watching him open the door and leave, Ling Li's eyes flashed and he looked at Suwon with a complicated expression. My dad seems to still have feelings for you. You're not really going to be my stepmother, are you? What does a brat know? Chapter 205. The flowers in the garden had been replaced. At this time, the afternoon sun was scorching and many flowers drooped their heads, looking weak. Du-chan stood in the sun, squinting his eyes and looking at the sun above his head. Going against the light was always asking for trouble. However, sometimes many people like to do this, not because they are stubborn, not because they are stupid, but because they have an obsession in their hearts. That obsession can't be let go, can't be broken. Say what you have to say. Su Wan's voice sounded behind Du Chun. Du Chun suddenly turned around and stretched out his arms to hug Su Wan, but Su Wan, who was already prepared, quickly retreated and dodged. Xiao Wan. Du Chun raised his eyes and looked at Su Wan with a hurt face. I know you still love me. You love me, right? I know I was wrong now. I regret it now. I'm sorry. I should have gone to find you back then. I shouldn't have been so selfish. Now I really know I was wrong. Give me a chance to make it up to you. Leave Big Brother and be with me. I will give you happiness. I will. These words had been suppressed in Du Chin's heart for a long time, and now he finally said them all in one breath. Not everyone will always stand in the same place waiting for you. Du Chin, you are actually very lucky. The original owner loved you all her life and finally died for you. Even if Ling Qiyu was hurt by you, she still chose to reconcile with you for the sake of her son. Tell me how happy you are. However, how can a scumbag deserve happiness? You don't deserve. What about the solemn pledge of eternal love? Why did you give up so easily? Why should a girl's heart be so ruthlessly trampled on by you? Not all love can be reunited after a broken mirror. What has been broken should be completely crushed and shouldn't exist. Su Wan smiled at Du Chun, and her smile was a bit strange. Du Chun, do you know? I don't love you. I have never loved you. I love Du Han. It has always been him. Xiao Wan. The Su Wan in front of him suddenly made Du Chun feel very unfamiliar. This was like a docile pet you had been raising suddenly showing you its sharp claws and teeth, wanting to kill you. This feeling made Du Chin's heart tremble fiercely. Are you surprised? A cold light flashed in Su Wan's eyes. You are always so conceited. I met Du Han first and fell in love with him. Is it so surprising? Back then, Du Han suddenly disappeared, and I kept looking for him. Later, I met you. I agreed to be with you because I wanted to see Du Han. You're lying, Xiao Wan. You're lying. If you don't love me, why would you commit suicide for me? Why did you suddenly come back to find me after a few years? Du Chun was a little emotional when he heard Su Wan's words, but at this time, he told himself that he must calm down because Su Wan's words were full of loopholes. She must be lying. Yeah, I'm lying. You can even tell. Su Wan smiled mockingly. Du Chun, do you know? The thing I regret the most now is that I fell in love with you. When I thought you would give me everything, what did you give me? When I came back to spend the rest of my life with you, what did you give me? Du Chun, touch your heart. Are you really sincere to me? If your sincerity is so fragile, then you don't need it. Xiao Wan, I already know my mistake now. Give me a chance. Believe me again. It's too late. Su Wan looked at Du Chun indifferently, as if she was looking at a stranger who had nothing to do with her. Du Chun, unless you can turn back time and let the dead heart of the past Su Wan come back to life, everything is already irreparable. Spilled water cannot be retrieved unless time is turned back. The cruelest rejection in the world is not loving, but having loved. How much pain did you make others suffer in the past? Now, you should personally experience that feeling. Su Wan turned around indifferently and looked at her departing figure. Du Chun couldn't help but shout, if there was no Du Han, would you forgive me? Su Wan shook her head. She had seen this kind of question many times. If there was no him, her, would you love me? The person who asked this question was actually very stupid, because if there was no him, there would still be another him. Those who don't love you will never be able to love you. Seeing Su Wan's determination to leave, Du Chun clenched his hands tightly. I, Du Chun, will definitely get what I want. Xiao Wan, without Du Han, you will love me. You will definitely love me. Warning. Warning. The protagonist of this world may be corrupted. Su Wan walked halfway and almost fell down in fright from the sudden alarm that popped up in her mind. Oh, she almost forgot that Du Chun, this scumbag, was the type of overbearing CEO who forced love. At that time, Ling Qiyu loved him and he didn't love her. Later, when Ling Qiyu didn't love him anymore, he became all kinds of overbearing and wanted to force himself on her. It's scary to think about it. Of course, Su Wan was also intoxicated by this kind of deep sadomasochistic love, and even he in the end. Not long after Su Wan returned to her room, Su Rue drove back home. As soon as he entered the door, He rushed into the bedroom anxiously. Xiao Wan, are you okay? I'm fine. Su Wan immediately smiled at Su Rue reassuringly. Seeing that Su Wan was fine, Su Rue breathed a sigh of relief. Du Chun, he didn't do anything to you, right? No, but he looks quite dangerous now. Do you think this world will be ruined by us? Points will be deducted. Su Wan felt very wronged. She didn't do anything. The male lead was a lunatic. What should she do? He was supposed to be a domineering male lead, but now he's been blackened by my words? How could this be endured? What if we make a move now? Su Rue rubbed his fingers. He had wanted to get rid of that guy long ago. He stared at his wife behind his back all day and even called her Xiao Wan. Your mother. We agreed that only this general can call her that. Dear, calm down. Su Wan raised her hand and pressed down Su Rue's restless hand. Right now, he only has this tendency. We can't make a move. If you're worried about me, I'll go to work with you in the future. It's also quite boring at home. Isn't your plan to encroach on the Du clan going very smoothly? And once he breaks the rules, he's dead. Yes, when someone in a world is completely blackened and touches the operating rules of a world, he will be sanctioned by the mission enforcers. In the beginning, Su Wan was sanctioned AI, saying too much is just tears. In short, Su Wan expressed that she was the most experienced in this. Okay. After listening to Su Wan's words, Su Rue also breathed a sigh of relief. From that day onwards, Su Wan really followed Su Rue every day, and Du Chun gradually began to take action. First, Su Jianjun was caught in a series of scandals, and finally, he was locked up because of a crime of passion case. Immediately afterward, the beauty chain run by Li Meiwan also had a major medical accident, and as the CEO, she was immediately exposed by the media for repeatedly defrauding public funds. Du Chun always thought that Su Jianjun and his wife were Su Wan's Achilles heel, and everyone in the world knew Du Han's Achilles heel. Chapter 206. Xiao Wan, save Mom, save me. In the middle of the night, Li Meiwan rushed into the Du house with disheveled hair and frantically slapped on Su Wan and Su Rue's door. So noisy. Su Wan impatiently turned over on the bed and leaned into Su Rue's arms again. Do you want me to tell her to shut up? Su Rue asked in a low voice. Su Wan shook her head. Don't touch her. She is doomed to not have a good end. Su Wan didn't want to dirty Su Rue's hands. A person like Li Meiwan was not worthy of him taking action. Xiao Wan. Li Meiwan's throat was hoarse from shouting outside the door, but the door was still tightly closed. Li Meiwan's heart was a little desperate. She had now become a street rat. It was fine if Du Chun didn't help her. Why did even her daughter and son-in-law stand by and watch? Now she was being chased everywhere by the husband of the lady who had a medical accident at the beauty salon. Li Meiwan also managed to sneak back to the Du house without anyone noticing. In fact, Li Meiwan also knew at this time that it was Du Chun. Du Chun set a trap for her. He couldn't protect her now, so those people would be so arrogant. At this time, Li Meiwan was a little regretful, but these regrets were useless. So noisy. At this moment, a door not far away was suddenly opened. Lingli was still wearing cartoon pajamas, rubbing his eyes and looking at Li Meiwan, who looked like a female ghost. What are you making so much noise for? If you make any more noise, I'll get someone to kick you out. It wasn't easy for Ling Qiue to have time to accompany Lingli these past few days. Originally, Lingli was very happy and slept better than usual, but who knew that a crazy woman would suddenly run out in the middle of the night? Well, that seemed to be Aunt Sue's mother, but Lingli still hated this person as always. It's Du Chen's son. Seeing Ling Li's figure, Li Meijuan's eyes flashed. In fact, she had planned to spend money to find someone to get rid of Du Chen's son, but every time she just started probing, the other party shook his head and refused. Not many people were willing to go against the Du family. Du Chen, since you're doing this, then I, Li Meiwan, will do it 15 times. Let's see if my life is more valuable or your son's life is more valuable. Li Meiwan slowly stood up and looked at Lingli with a fierce gaze. What are you doing? Lingli blinked his big eyes and looked at Li Meiwan, who was getting closer and closer. What do you think I should do? Li Meiwan grinned and pounced on Lingli, but in the next second, She felt her back go numb and her whole body fell down powerlessly. Too weak, Su Xiaosu blew the electric current on her hand and muttered to herself indifferently. During this time, Su Rui had been protecting Su Wan while also strengthening Su Xiaosu's martial strength. That's right. General Su took care of everything. She's too stupid. She actually wanted to attack the Du family's young master in the Du family's villa. Did this woman really not have a brain? Ling Li looked at the unconscious Li Meiwan with a look of disgust. Hey. At this time, Su Xiaosu raised her hand and waved it in front of Ling Li's eyes. I just saved you. According to you humans, it's called a hero saving a beauty. How are you going to thank me? Su Xiaosu's voice was filled with pride. She thought to herself, this time Ling Li owes me a favor. If there's delicious food at home in the future, he won't be too embarrassed to fight with me, right? Then all the delicious food will be mine. Ha ha ha. Hero saving a beauty? When Ling Li heard Su Xiaosu's words and saw her big eyes that were still shining in the dark, his face suddenly turned red for some reason. Don't tell me. Don't tell me you want me to repay you with my body? What the hell is repay you with my body? In order to prevent his daughter from falling in love at an early age, General Su did not set the love line in Su Xiaosu's database. So, General Su, you really put in a lot of effort, hard work. Su Xiaosu only had a very clear understanding of the feelings between humans. As for friendship, love, and whatnot, it was too complicated and too far away for her. She didn't understand. Repay me with my body? Su Xiaosu muttered to herself again. These 4 words were a bit familiar. How did it play in the TV series? Oh no, Mom didn't let her watch it recently and she almost forgot about it. However, it sounded like a good thing. Okay, then repay me with your body. In the end, Su Xiaosu simply patted Ling Li on the shoulder and exhorted him with a serious face. You must remember, always remember, don't forget. This little brat, he likes to turn his back on people the most, so Su Xiaosu felt it was necessary to remind him. As a result, Ling Li remembered it and never forgot it for the rest of his life. However, Su Xiaosu turned around and forgot. The unconscious Li Meiwan was finally thrown out of the Du family's villa. Su Wan did not deliberately inquire about her fate, but Su Jianjun was acquitted after squatting in prison for a while. Perhaps it was because Du Chen saw that Su Wan really had no reaction to the safety of her biological parents that he let Su Jianjun go in the end. At this time, the battle for power in the Du family had also entered the most tense moment. The launch of Su Rui's new product had received a great response. The shareholders of the Du family had always been mercenary. At this time, many people supported the change of CEO, and Du Chen's position began to be in jeopardy. At this time, a foreign company that Du Chen had been working with suddenly closed down. This was his very important partner, and Du Chen had to immediately fly abroad to deal with this matter. When he saw the person behind the scenes who completely closed down his partner, he was stunned for a long time. It was Ling Yinzhou. Ling Yinzhou was indeed a business genius, and the foreign environment was more suitable for his development. After he decided to cooperate with Su Rui immediately arranged for him to go abroad, give him treatment, and then pave the way for him in order to catch Du Chen off guard today. During this period, Ling Yinzhou kept in touch with Ling Qiyu. The current Ling Qiyu was no longer the original naive little girl. Knowing her brother and Du Han's plan, she had been trying her best to cooperate and did not reveal the slightest flaw in front of Du Chen. Du Chen, who felt that he had been deceived by everyone, immediately returned to the country overnight. He wanted to settle the score with Du Han. Since Du Han dared to scheme against him, then why would he still care about brotherly affection with him? Late at night, the Du family's villa was silent. The people in the villa did not know about Du Chen's sudden return. Looking at the dark hall, Du Chen sneered and slowly took out a small silencer pistol from his arms. As long as Du Han died, everything would be over. The Du family belonged to the Du family. Without Du Han, the shareholders had no choice. Xiao Wan was his. Without Du Han, Xiao Wan would definitely return to his arms. Even if she didn't love him anymore, he would imprison her by his side for the rest of her life. Du Chen chuckled and slowly walked up the stairs step by step. In the dark night, murderous intent filled the air. Du Chen? Suddenly, A clear female voice cut through the silence of the night. Why are you back? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.